आज इस अंतर्राष्ट्रीय संगोष्ठी के द्वितीय दिवस पर आप सभी का बहुत बहुत स्वागत करते हैं। 100 चाँद भी आ जाए तो महफिल में वो बात नहीं, आपके आने से हमारे इस महफिल में रौनक है। जी हाँ, आप सभी विद्वानगण, आप सभी शिक्षाविद और आप सभी विधिवेत्ता ही हैं जिनके कारण इस हमारी अंतर्राष्ट्रीय संगोष्ठी की रौनक बढ़ी है। यह अंतर्राष्ट्रीय संगोष्ठी जो वैदिक विज्ञान केंद्र में आयोजित की गई है, इसका उद्देश्य ही था कि देश भर से और देश के बाहर से भी सभी विद्वानों को कम से कम एक साथ लाया जाए, एक साथ मंचन हो, एक साथ मंथन हो, एक साथ समन्वय स्थापित किया जाए, सबके विचारों को सुना जाए और उससे जो अमृत रूपी हमें जो फल मिले उससे हम सभी लाभान्वित हो सकें। तो इसी को ध्यान में रखते हुए ये 2 दिवसीय अंतर्राष्ट्रीय संगोष्ठी की शुरुआत की गई है। आज हम इसके द्वितीय सत्र के 6वें तकनीकी सत्र की शुरुआत करने जा रहे हैं। अब मैं निवेदन करूंगा हमारे सभी अतिथि गणमान्य वक्तागणों से और इस सेशन के मॉडरेटर से कि कृपया आकर के मंच पर अपना स्थान ग्रहण करें। इस तकनीकी सत्र जिसका विषय है संविधान, राजधर्म और सुशासन, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, राजधर्म एंड गुड गवर्नेंस, इस सत्र में चेयरपर्सन एंड सेशन मॉडरेटर के रूप में हमारे बीच मौजूद हैं प्रोफेसर विजय शंकर शुक्ला जी, एडवाइजर इंदिरा गांधी नेशनल सेंटर फॉर आर्ट्स न्यू दिल्ली। मैं सर से निवेदन करूंगा कि सर कृपया आएं और अपना स्थान ग्रहण करें। मॉडरेटर के रूप में हमारे बीच हैं प्रोफेसर विनोद शंकर मिश्रा जी, प्रोफेसर फैकल्टी ऑफ लॉ, बनारस हिंदू यूनिवर्सिटी। और इस सत्र में हमारे बीच जो वक्तागण हैं जिनका हमें लाभ प्राप्त होगा, डॉक्टर रिवरेंड वाडिंगला पन्नलोका जी, सीनियर लेक्चरर एंड एकेडमिक कोऑर्डिनेटर, डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ बुद्धिस्ट फिलॉसफी, पोस्ट ग्रेजुएट इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ पाली एंड बुद्धिस्ट। डॉक्टर एम राजेंद्रन जी, IAS रिटायर्ड, रेसिपिएंट ऑफ साहित्य अकेडमी ऑफ अवार्ड। प्रोफेसर अमरपाल सिंह जी, डीन, यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ स्कूल ऑफ लॉ एंड लीगल स्टडी। प्रोफेसर श्रीनिवासा वरखेड़ी जी, वाइस चांसलर सेंट्रल संस्कृत यूनिवर्सिटी न्यू दिल्ली। प्रोफेसर पुष्प कुमार जी, वाइस चांसलर सेंट्रल संस्कृत यूनिवर्सिटी। प्रोफेसर पुष्प कुमार जी, प्रोफेसर लॉ सेंटर 1, फैकल्टी ऑफ लॉ। डॉक्टर सुरेंद्र नारायण झा जी, डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ वेदा, श्री लाल बहादुर शास्त्री नेशनल संस्कृत यूनिवर्सिटी। आप सभी वक्तागणों और अध्यक्ष महोदय से निवेदन है कि कृपया अपना स्थान ग्रहण कर लें। अब मैं निवेदन करूंगा इस केंद्र के समन्वयक श्री डॉक्टर उपेंद्र नाथ त्रिपाठी सर से। प्रोफेसर उपेंद्र नाथ त्रिपाठी सर कृपया आएं और हमारे वक्तागणों को, हमारे अतिथिगणों को सम्मानित करें अंगवस्त्रम और मोमेंटों के द्वारा।
सर सामने
मोमेंटो प्रदान करते हैं। धन्यवाद सर। अब मैं पुनः इस स्नेह रूपी सम्मान के द्वारा हमें आशीर्वचन मिलेगा, जो आज के तकनीकी सत्र का विषय है, संविधान, राजधर्म और सुशासन पर।
Good afternoon and good morning too. We are here to discuss the topic Constitution, Rājadharma and Good Governance. And distinguished speakers are Dr. Reverend Pannaloka, Dr. M. Rājadharma, M. Amarpal Singh, Professor Srinivas and Professor Pushp Kumar and Dr. Surendran Jha. Just to begin with, in a country like India, when we compare Western society and Indian society, Western society is Constitution, Rājadharma. So Rājadharma means duty of the king. So duty of the king is the king is governed not by any his own whims, by his own whims and fancy. He is governed by what is called the supreme law of the land. And the supreme law of the land is, in a country like India, of course we are influenced by the Western education, is marked by or is affected by this document called the Constitution. So, to begin with this concept of seminar, I would only say that Indian Constitution has, probably if we go through the cover page of the Indian Constitution, Ramayana is there. So, perhaps it reflects the entire essence of the seminar. That Ram Rajya, of course, one can say, nowadays we are talking about Hindu nationalist, or someone will brand it at that one is propagating Hindu philosophy. But the entire Indian Constitution perhaps is based on that notion of equality, certain values. Like Western concept of secularism, what it says that the complete separation between law and religion. But the Indian concept of secularism says that equal respect and equal treatment to all religion. And what we have seen that in case of Turkey just now, the Indian government, the way the Indian government responded, because it's a Rājadharma, not that the Turkey was a country who was hostile to India, and the way India should react, that only it should give what is called the verbal advice or verbal declaration that it is committed to certain values. But India as a country, it has not confined itself to the mere its own thought and principles, but it has extended its help to the country like Turkey. So what I want to ask our participant, the focus is, one should focus on the Rājadharma and good governance. The present government is working, and one can see this present government is working because certain issues are there, certain principles are there. I hope the participant of the seminar will give their attention on the issue that good governance is always ensured through rule of law. And rule of law, it does not depend on any particular principles. It imbibes all the values, and in a country like India, rule of law is a concept that ensures equality, that ensures the distributive justice. And what Indian Supreme Court, sometimes the notion of justice is there, and Indian Supreme Court sometimes ensure what it calls complete justice. So the participant of the seminar, probably they will focus on all these issues. And I ask my chairperson to initiate discussion on this issue and hand over this mic to him. I always aspire that we should always follow these basic values of what is called Constitution, Rājadharma and good governance. And good governance is always achieved through one's own deed. And the last but not the least, good governance is achieved only through two basic issues: what we preach and what we practice. The last observation of mine is, whatever we preach, if either those who are governing us or as a subject as we are, whatever we do, it must reflect from our actions, and that promotes what is called good governance in every aspect of life, be the economic life, be the social life, or be the other life. Thank you, sir. So I will ask my chairperson to take over the proceeding of this house.
Both are complementary to each other. And esteemed moderator of this session, Professor Mishra, has introduced in very brief about its relation. Now we have sufficient time, and also the very profound scholars of this field who are going to give proper interpretation of Constitution, Rājadharma, and good governance. आप सभी को बहुत प्रसन्नता होगी कि यह जो सारस्वत संगोष्ठी का सत्र है, इसमें कितने सम्मानित विद्वान अपने अपने क्षेत्र के अपने विचार प्रस्तुत करने जा रहे हैं। हम लोगों के बीच में केंद्रीय संस्कृत विश्वविद्यालय के सम्माननीय कुलपति आचार्य प्रोफेसर श्रीनिवास वरखेड़ी जी हैं। श्रीलंका से पधारे हुए रिवेर्ड पन्नाकोला जी हैं। इंद्रप्रस्थ विश्वविद्यालय के सम्मानित आचार्य डॉक्टर अमरपाल सिंह जी हैं। दिल्ली विश्वविद्यालय के सम्माननीय आचार्य प्रोफेसर पुष्प कुमार जी यहाँ उपस्थित हैं। और जैसा मैंने कहा कि इस संपूर्ण ज्ञान परंपरा, यह संपूर्ण जो व्याख्यान परंपरा आज प्रस्तुत होने जा रही है, उसका आधार, उसकी आधारभूत सामग्री, आधारभूत तत्व जो एक दूसरे के साथ गुथित हुए हैं, लेकिन उनका मूल आधार वेद है। और वेद के ऊपर यहाँ जो प्रमुख व्याख्यान प्रस्तुत होगा वो लाल बहादुर शास्त्री राष्ट्रीय संस्कृत विश्वविद्यालय के वेद के आचार्य डॉक्टर सुंदर नारायण झा जी प्रस्तुत करेंगे। हम लोगों के बीच में डॉक्टर एम राजेंद्रन जी हैं। इस तरह से यह सत्र अपने आप में गरिमा मंडित है। मैं अपने सभी आचार्य जो यहाँ उपस्थित हैं और संविधान पर बोलने जा रहे हैं, राजधर्म पर बोलने जा रहे हैं, गुड गवर्नेंस के ऊपर अपना वक्तव्य देने जा रहे हैं, उनसे यह अनुरोध है कि गुड गवर्नेंस का पालन करते हुए सीमित समय में अपनी बात को प्रस्तुत करेंगे। मैं सर्वप्रथम एट द वेरी आउटसेट आई वुड लाइक टू इनवाइट रिवर्ड वाडिनागाला Pannaloka, who is senior lecturer and academic coordinator, Department of Buddhist Philosophy, Postgraduate Institute of Pali and Buddhist Studies, Kohuwala, Sri Lanka.
How to change the slides? Good morning, distinguished scholars and the organizing committee and the participants. It's a great opportunity to join today this program. Actually, I was invited by the organizers, especially to come from Sri Lanka. I feel I have been several times now to India. Every time is a precious experience. It brings a lot of joy to me, and it also takes me back to the time of the Buddha, and especially this place where the Buddha initiated his missionary program with 5 ascetic monks. Dhammacakka Pravartana took place in this city. So it is always a great thing to visit this place as a Buddhist and also a Buddhist monk. And today our program and this conference focuses on both traditional Indian knowledge about legal system and also the Western teachings or Western legal philosophy. My paper focuses on Rājadharma in early Buddhism and how it is related to good governance. Okay, before starting the presentation, I feel that we are in a junction or at a certain point where I think two civilizations in clash, the Vedic and the Indian tradition and then the Western tradition. I think we are in a kind of conflict mode. Then we have been trained and we have been taught the Western system of thinking and governance and the legal system. And also we have a tradition which is coming from several millennia, which were behind us always and gave us footing to face any kind of challenges. But there is, I think, some confrontation between these two traditions. As a new generation, I think my question is we have to get whatever good disregarding the origin. So it means if you have, that is my question, if we have to learn from our tradition, of course we are open, and also to other traditions also. As King Solomon said, he's the king who could build the temple in the Jewish tradition. He said, I learned from other religions than my own religion. It does not mean that he demeaned his tradition, but I think he's the one who represents in Jewish tradition the wisdom. So he said, I learned from others, other traditions which were not recognized. So it means as I think, we have to have open mind. Of course, we appreciate, we love, we protect our tradition first, then we enhance our tradition. We can't, as I think, we can't be blind to developing things in the world. If certain things are working better than our system, I am always ready to accept it. So that is, I think, regarding these legal teachings and how a government should be run. These are very critical questions. So to address these things, it requires a lot of knowledge, expertise. But I'm not expertise in governance. I'm only a Buddhist monk and a Buddhist scholar. So my paper focuses on finally that Rājadharma, as the chairperson and the others initiator mentioned, the Rājadharma and good governance, how they are connected, and how they, in early Buddhism, how these two things have understood, and from Buddhist point of view, how we are going to get some insights to enhance or to improve our current system. Good governance, if I start with the word good governance, now when we research, we can learn it's not a kind of limited meaning only to govern or rule by the government, but it has widened its scope to embrace all the aspects of society. Without economic prosperity, there's no good governance. So the experts today focuses on the strategies and the policies or the values, etc., how to support the whole process of developing human society. So the taking decisions and implementing decisions all should be aligned with raising the level of society. It's not only rule of law, but it covers many aspects. It means it's a kind of holistic approach to develop human society. In early Buddhism, we learn that we learn basically Buddhism started with the Gautama the Buddha in the 600 BC here in India, starting from Banaras, and then his teaching spread all across the Asia and even to beyond Asia. It reached during the time of the Emperor Asoka. Sri Lanka is still being the stronghold for Theravada Buddhist tradition, which is based on Pali Buddhism. In the Pali canon, we can read and we can learn many ideas about Rājadharma. Dharma is the most important thing. I think yesterday the professors and distinguished scholars, they referred what is the basis for the rule, that is the Dharma. King is above everybody. Even in Buddhist tradition, king is the highest human being in the secular world. Two leaders are there in the world. One is the Buddha, who represents the spiritual realm, and the Chakravarti Raja, or Raja Chakravarti, the universal monarch, is the highest person in the secular world. So the king demands a lot of respect according to the Buddhist readings, texts from us, of course. So then the Raja Chakravarti is the model for good governance, for the proper governance in the society. Then he's the model, and he places Dharma as the guiding principle for him. So Dharma is the most important thing. And before, okay, I will directly go to the topic. So then, in forging good governance, there are ethical teachings to be followed by the rulers. Of course, in the ancient times, we recognize, based on Buddhist literature, there are two government systems. One is this monarchical system, and the other is republican system, Ganatantra. So for the monarchs, Buddha had taught set of teachings, and for the Ganatantra states, or for the republics or democracies, he had approved another set of teachings. At that time, we know that Buddha's time was a time which witnessed the growth of monarchs, like Bimbisara in the Magadha, and Udeni, and King Kosala, etc. These were emerging empires at that time in India. Finally, it reached the climax with Asokan period. So for these emerging states and system, Buddhism was consulted time to time by these rulers or the contemporary kings of the Buddha's time. And even though we normally recognize Buddhism is directed at transcendental, or more than transcendental, the human liberation, moksha, but it has focused on the well-being of our society. Without proper function of the society we are living in, we can't focus on spiritual progress. Spirituality is to support, finally, to our secular life, our day-to-day life. So, Buddhism accepts that we need the good governance, because governance is a process which had been, we can learn from the ancient time to this moment, it is always corrupted, or it is affected highly by, in Buddhist terms, lobha, dvesha and moha. Ignorance, the greed, hatred and ignorance. So, because we know that in the context of the kings, they were, they had every luxuries, they had the power, unquestionable power at that time, not like today. So it is very easy to deviate from the ethical path. So the spiritual leaders, they had to produce, I think, the teachings to bring the control of these people, these rulers. If the the first set of Buddhist teachings that Buddha taught for the Raja Chakravarti, or the universal monarch, or the kings, is 5 precepts, which is very common, and everybody knows that Buddhism teaches the 5 precepts, and it is common practice even for the Raja Chakravarti, even the universal monarch. So in Buddhist tradition, one text is that Chakravarti Sihanada Sutta, that is found in the Digha Nikaya, and this sutta is very important in many respects. First thing is, it reveals what is the duty that Raja Chakravarti follows. First thing is, he has to assure the safety of his public. Not only the humans, but also the animals and all the beings living inside his kingdom. They have to be provided with safety first, and then he should be based on 5 precepts. And the one important idea that this sutta reveals is this kind of legendary story. Father king was Chakravarti, his name was Dalhanemi, and then he saw that his time has reached the climax, so then he has to retire from the kingship. Then he handed over the throne to his eldest son. After 1 week from gaining the Abhiseka, the new king loses the Chakraratana. Chakraratana in Sanskrit, in Devanagari words I have mentioned, it means he has lost the power. So then universal power he has lost. So then he was confused, what happened? So then he invites his father king, and then father says, son, universal monarchhood or this kingship is not something come from father to son. You have to earn it, even though I transferred it, but protecting it, and you have to gain it through your virtuous conduct. So then he asked, okay, now it is lost, what to do? First, you have to observe Uposatha. What is the Uposatha? I think you all know this word, I guess. Uposatha is, in our tradition, is observe 8 precepts, not the 5 precepts actually, and refrain from enjoyments, and like a saint or a sannyasi, what the lay people spends Uposatha day, then only appears the Chakraratana, the power again reappears once the king observes the Uposatha day, and he starts to place the Dhamma in front of him. here he asks what are the duties of the universal monarch, Chakravarti Varta. And then king says that Dalhanemi, he is the father king, he teaches to his son, Dhammang eva nissaya, Dhammang sakkaranto, Dhammang garukaranto, Dhammang manento, pujento, Dhammang apachayamano, Dhammikang rakhavarana gutting sangvidahassu, Anto janasming balakayasming, etc. It goes on. So he shows that first you have to put the Dhamma first. So then so what is the Dhamma of the Chakravarti is when after the son got the power, he starts invading or winning over the other countries. What he taught was for his subordinate kings who were subjugated by the king through the Dharma. He asked them to observe 5 precepts. Panona hantabbo, adinnang nadatabba, kamesu miccana charitabba, musana bhasitabba, majjang napatabba. This is the Dhamma that Chakravarti Raja holds on, and this is the Dhamma he taught his the kings of his colonies. So this is the duty, first set of duties that we find in Buddhist tradition for good governance. So if it means that 5 precepts serves as the basis for governance. And regarding this, one of the modern German Buddhist scholar, monk, he says, message of the sutta, it means in the Chakravarti Siyanada Sutta, is that adherence to basic ethical principles enshrined in the 5 precepts and cultivating a compassionate attitude. So, ruling out of thirst for power. So here we can see that 5 precepts comes first to be observed by us. The underlying principle behind the precepts is being compassionate and being ethical. So these are the things even the ruler should observe. This is the Dhamma, the first. And the second set of teachings come under the name of Rājadharma, 10 royal duties. So these are the Rājadharma is more elaborated in the Buddhist Jataka literature. So then in the Jatakas there are several number of Jatakas which deal with the 10 royal duties. Okay, so then Dana, Sila, Parichaga, Ajjava, Madhava, Tapa, Akkoda, Avihimsa, Khanti, Aviroda. All these things, these 10 duties, finally we can summarize into the principle of the good governance reflected in Buddhist tradition. So it means if I take one thing, so the parichaga, making sacrifices, if people are, if they are for the good of the people, so the king has to maintain a system of welfare for the people. And also he cannot be under the biases. He cannot be violent, and he cannot he cannot hold to hatred. So these are the things that can violate, that can turn a rule into a problematic situation. If the rulers are led by this sort of mental tendencies which are harmful, so then the kingdom can shatter. So therefore, in the ancient tradition, in Buddhist as well as other traditions, they produces some teachings to control not only the physical behavior, even the entire behavior, verbal, physical and mental of king as well as the ordinary citizen. They all have to observe and they all have to undergo kind of transformation in their behavior. Then only there is proper function of the society. So okay, then last set of the teachings are in the Mahaparinibbana Sutta. Those teachings are called Satta Aparihaniya Dharma. Aparihaniya is translated as non-degenerative. They are conducive to prosperity, not for degeneration. So the principles are 7. These are the things: frequent meeting, discussing and leaving assembly in unity, respect for elders and listening to them, not enforcing new laws and preserving already existing laws, visiting the religious places in the kingdom, not commit acts of aggression against women folk, providing safety for religious leaders. So if we observe these 7 principles, these were given by the Buddha for the democracies at the time. All the new ideologies or new trends in our society. Nowadays we talk about gender equality. Of course I support it. I teach it as Buddhism and gender at our universities. So you can see that ancient time in our traditions, whether it is Buddhism or Jainism or Hinduism, this aspect is a special principle to provide safety for the ladies, to respect them, to protect them, and to care for them. So it is a government principle. So in the democracy, it is an essential element to provide this safety for the female. So I think we can learn from these things and even we can contribute to the ongoing dialogues today in the world about these problems in our societies. Of course, even though we have achieved unimaginable success in science and technology, but still we suffer due to many issues in our societies. Gender is one, and poverty is another. We have to get insight from these teachings and also inspiration from these teachings in order to turn the problematic situations into better situations. Please let me to say a few words about this aspect. As in my beginning remarks, I mentioned that today the economy and the good governance are interrelated, and even says that actually the idea of good governance is encouraged in order to facilitate the economic process. So we can see in our tradition, in our traditions, in Buddhist tradition, Buddhism sees in 2 places poverty is the source of all the evil. So if poverty is not removed from society, there's no talk about other things. In the Cakkavatti Sihanada Sutta, a causal relationship given based on poverty and how poverty would lead to collapse of society. Adananang dane anupadiyamane dalidyang vepulla magamasi. So when the poor people are not supported by the government or any agencies with necessary welfare, then poverty increases. Dalidyang vepullang gate adinna danang vepullang agamasi. So then when there is poverty, there is stealing. And then adinna dane vepullang gate sattang vepullang agamasi. When there is robberies and those things, then people take weapons to protect themselves. And then satte vepullang gate panatipato vepullang agamasi. When there are weapons in the society, it's natural to have a lot of killings in the society. Panatipata, the So then panatipate vepullam gate tesang sattanam ayupi parihaya vannapi parihaya tesang ayunapi parihaya mananam vannenapi parihaya mananam. So then it says that finally, because of this moral degeneration started from poverty, led to decrease the lifespan of society, of people. So we can see here the relationship between the economic condition and the good governance and poverty, etc. And also another story I have to tell, that comes in the sutta called Kuttadanta Sutta. Everybody can Google it. Here there's very important thing. Please give me 2 minutes, because I want to tell this. Here the Buddha and there was a Brahmin called Kuttadanta. There was a dialogue between them, and the Buddha narrates a past incident. There was a king called Mahavijita, and he wanted to perform a sacrifice, yaga, for him. Then his Purohita Brahmin was not willing to that, but he said, my lord, it is not the time to perform a sacrifice, because in your country there are a lot of problems in the society. Janapado Sakantako Saupalo Gama Gatapi Dissanti Nigama Gatapi Dissanti Nagara Gatapi Dissanti. In your city there are uprisings, and in the country, and also in the villages, in the cities, everywhere there are killings. So it is not time to perform a yaga. So then there is another important thing is, then Purohit is very intelligent. He said, maybe you think that by the exercise of power and weapon or crushing methods in the government system, you can overcome these rebellions. But the Purohit says, no, it's not possible. Okay, you may kill few people, but there are other people, later generation, will rise again. They will get reorganized again and come against you. So you won't experience peace. So what to do? He says, here, Purohita Brahmin advises the king to do several things. One, in your country there are farmers. Please provide what they want, maybe seeds and other facilities, fertilizers, etc. And there are businessmen. Please provide capital for them, or provide the opportunities for the entrepreneurs. And then there are government servants. Please provide them enough salary and other facilities. If you do these things, people will be busy with in the economic process. And then finally, once they will gain sufficient economic strength, then they don't rise against you. How they spend their time? Ure putte nachente aparuta dhara manye viharanti. The people, how do they live? They enjoy their, they cuddle their children's in the shoulder, and the houses are left open. Those are not closed. So the people live very freely. So that is the society, as I understand, the Buddhist teachings want to establish on this earth. And in order to do that, the kings, the rulers, they had to adhere these ethical principles and take necessary measurements to assure economic growth in a society. That's the only way to build a better society. Thank you. May people the industry.
Thank you, Revered Pannaloka ji. He has referred many Buddhist texts, Dikha Nikaya, Anguttara Nikaya, Chakravarti Singhanath Sutta, and interpreted the concept of good governance, which is necessary for a king. Hopefully, we have no consent about the authority of the text, and we may proceed without any break. And our next speaker is Dr. M. Rājadharma. Rājadharma ji is a recipient of Sahitya Academy Award, and at present he is director KMMC Medical College, मध्यम कन्याकुमारी। सब लोगों के लिए बड़े सौभाग्य की बात है कि आज हमारे सारस्वत संगोष्ठी में हमारे राष्ट्र के सबसे सीमावर्ती बिंदु कन्याकुमारी, सबसे आदरणीय पूजनीय क्षेत्र, वहाँ से श्री राजेंद्रन जी यहाँ पधारे हुए हैं। और अब मैं आपसे रिक्वेस्ट करता हूँ कि काइंडली गो अहेड विद योर पेपर। थैंक यू।
Thank you, Professor. In fact, Professor.
Yeah, we have 20 minute times for your presentation and yes, 10 minutes if anyone.
I'll do it. Complete it. 85 years before, this place had Sir C.P. Ramasamy Iyer as the Vice Chancellor. At that time, he has invited one speaker from Tamil Nadu, from my place, to address the gathering here. His name was Pasumban Muthuramalinga Thevar. At that time, it was resented, not objected, it was resented that a person who has not gone to any university, who has studied up to 11th standard, is being invited to address the August gathering in BHU. But Vice Chancellor assured that you just hear him and then you form your opinion. Don't underestimate a person because he has not gone to an university. That way, Pasumban Muthuramalinga Thevar, who was a close associate of Netaji, he was his deputy. Pasumban Muthuramalinga Thevar has never swayed from person to person, party to party. Netaji was his only leader from the beginning until his end. He was the member of the Constituent Assembly also. So Pasumban Muthuramalinga Thevar, a non-graduate, addressed this university 85 years before. And after hearing them, Vice Chancellor, by way of summing up, he said, last 200 years, Englishmen ruled us. Last 2 hours, Pasumban Muthuramalinga Thevar ruled English. That's what they think. In fact, as Professor has given very good opinion about South people, we are in the southernmost part of India. I was listening to our friend, Dr. Wadinagala Pannaloka. He is my great friend. We have become great friends nowadays, in the last 2 days. He was narrating about the good governance. You know, in Sri Lanka, there are about 40,000 monks, all dedicated monks like him, highly educated, knowledgeable in Pali as well as Sanskrit language. But had his politicians heard their advice, Sri Lanka would have been a better place now. Now you know that Sri Lanka is facing so much of problem, political problem, economical instability and all that. But when I was listening to Swamiji, I could see there are so many similarities between Buddhist philosophy as well as Manusmriti, our philosophy. And we have followed all those things, and that is why we are in a better place now. And probably in Sri Lanka, at least now it is not too late. Their rulers have to listen to them. In fact, there is a other connection between Thiruvalluvar. I think I would like to show the photo of Thiruvalluvar, first photo. Thiruvalluvar, you might have heard of his name. He has written just only one book, 1330 couplets. That is the only contribution. That too, it's all right. It is the only book. He was born in the year 29 BC.
But what you have written is wrong.
What is it?
Just see. Next. What you have written is wrong.
29 AD. Yes, it should have been BC. Only Tamil people are finding fault with me. They are too smart. They know where I will fail. So, he was born in 29 BC. He was born in Mylapore in a weaver family, like Varanasi. Varanasi is noted for its this cloth and all that. Kabir Das is already from this place, and this thing our Thiruvalluvar is also born from weaver family. His wife, his name is Vasugi. He is reported to be highly devoted to him. Highly devoted means at this point of time we have to explain how much devoted she was. One time she was drawing water from the well. At that time there is no taps and all that. Water tap we don't have. We have to pull water from the well through a pulley. She was drawing water. At that time a mendicant, a beggar, he came and asked for food. He asked for alms. Vasugi, give me some food and all that. He said, no, wait. At that time she left the pulley in the well and went and took the food and then gave it to the mendicant. So till such time, till she returns, the pulley was standing on the air. That was the power of chastity. On another occasion, when she was late for giving alms to a mendicant, that mendicant became very angry. He was asking for bhiksha. So she came late. He became very angry and then started staring at her. Normally that mendicant has a previous history. What he will do, if he looks at a person, stare at a person continuously, then he will burn. That is his previous history. So he started practicing that thing along with, on this lady, on Vasugi. He started staring at him and nothing happened. But Vasugi said, do you think that I am a person to be burnt? I can't be burnt because I adore my husband, I respect my husband, so nothing will happen to me. So these kind of things may sound very conservative, but people, women used to be like that. So, and another this 1330 couplets he had made, and he has incorporated all the religious ideas, Jainism, Buddhism, Hinduism, Christianity, even Christianity also. All those things are found, and that is why people claim Tirukkural to be their own language. All people claim that the Tirukkural is their own language. And Tamil Nadu, yesterday Professor Dr. Ravi sir has spoken about the Tamil legal system, and he talked about one incident about Manu. Manuskriti is known throughout Tamil Nadu, even those days. One of the rulers of Chola king, Rajendra Chola, Rajaraja Chola, one of the predecessors name is Manu. Manu is a king, he is a predecessor to the 10th century Rajaraja. And Ramayana is known throughout Tamil Nadu because one Kambar has rendered Ramayana on the same basis of Valmiki, with slight difference. In Valmiki, he is supposed to have taken Sita by hand. In Valmiki, there is a narration. But to suit our way of thinking in Tamil, he made it a slight difference. He said, instead of dragging her by hand, he took her by the earth. He was staying along the earth, he lifted her. So just to show that a lady should not be touched unnecessarily. So we know Ramayana, we know Mahabharata. In fact, throughout the Southeast Asia, starting from Burma, Malaysia, Singapore, and then up to Cambodia, Laos, all these places, even including this Indonesia, all these places, Ramayana, Mahabharata has spread only because of the Cholas. Because Cholas was the only rulers of Indian origin who have gone outside the borders of India. Other countries, they might have done only defensive thing, but offensive work has been done by Chola King Rajaraja and Rajendra, and they had control and they had sway over those areas for more than 2-3 centuries through trade, not by aggressive means, by trade and goodwill. So through that, on those times, these things spread. Ramayana spread, Mahabharata spread, all these things, because my name is Rajendran. Rajendran is a Chola king's name. So whenever I go to Southeast Asia, I never find any difficulty, or those people never find any difficulty in pronouncing my name. If other people go, they will break your name into 2-3 pieces. But Rajendran can never be broken because it is a known name there. So Southeast Asia is noted for all those things, and we spread the Manusmriti and then our legal points. And about lady, yesterday I heard one good thing that Professor Swain has told. There is no difference between criminal law and civil law in the ancient society. And at the same time, there is no place for lawyers. All the cases have to be reported or contested by the party himself. That was the system. Advocate system is introduced during British period, Mughals period, and even in this thing, that word still continues in Indonesia. In Indonesia, the chief is called not like chief minister. The chief is there, but every chief minister of a state will have a vakil behind him. The prime minister of Indonesia will have a vakil behind him. Vakil means more or less a deputy prime minister. Deputy chief minister is called vakil in Indonesia. So that kind of arrangement is not available in India in the ancient times. Even Kannagi, a lady in the year 187 AD, 187 2nd century, 187 AD, she is an ordinary lady. She contested before King Pandya about the wrong committed by him to her husband. Her husband was illegally punished. He was killed, and this lady went and contested before the king. And you see, as if whatever you may be familiar with the plaint, how a plaint has to be drafted, how a counter plaint has to be drafted. You may be knowing all those things. The same way she represents in Silappadigaram. It starts like this: Tera Manna. That is means, now in courts we call people honorable judge, we say, your lordship, we say. There the lady says, useless king. Tera Manna. Just one word, useless king. And he asks, who are you? And she says, this is my father's name, my father-in-law's name. They were just such people. They lived there, and I had a husband. and this husband, my husband came to Madurai and he was wrongly killed by your people, by your Javans, and now my name is Kannagi. I have come to ask for justice. So all these things in 10 lines, as if a neat draft of how a plaint has to be developed. This 2nd century epic depicts. So that kind of thing is there. And then there was one Porkai Pandian. This Porkai Pandian lived in 1st century BC. What he did was, every day he will go around during night time. Normally you know that politicians are also going right rounds nowadays, but for different purpose. But to dispense justice, just to see how things move, our earlier kings, they should go for night rounds, Nagarvalam they call it. And when on one such occasion, he was overhearing a conversation in a house. That husband was telling his wife, I am going on a business tour or to North India. He says North India, Vadadesam. I go to North India. It may take time, so be safe. And that lady asked, during your absence, who will give me protection? Then that's boy, there is lady, the gent said, merchant said, the king is there. No, I do not know the king. No, the king, you may not be knowing the king, but the king knows all of us. He has got a group of people who watch everyone. So you don't worry, you will be safe. And every day, every night, the king used to cross that house and then found everything is all right. After a month, there was a conversation hearing. In the road, he heard some conversation. And he thought that some stranger has come inside the house, and then he wanted to test it. He tapped the door. And then he found out that his real husband has come. So the husband opened, but by the time he is left, the king has left, knowing that the husband is there. But he should not have done, he had left. So the husband, as usual, most of the husbands are suspicious, especially if the wife is beautiful. The first thing husband will do is creating suspicion. So that lady may be good looking. So he started suspecting, I saw somebody tapping at your door. They do not know that I am here. So I think you have been carrying on this kind of business for quite a long time. So this lady pleaded and then said, cried, and no, nothing happened about it. Then the king, what he did was, next day he came and tapped all the doors. It was a firefighting arrangement, just to stop the fire to grow more. But it had a negative effect. So all the people complained in the street. Some new fellow started coming and tapping at every door. So something is wrong. Then the king himself has cut his hand. His hand name is Porkai Pandian. He has removed his hand, amputated his hand, and at that time it seems the surgery department was also very good. They put a hand made of gold in his hand, in his amputated hand. So the king used to give punishment to themselves. As in the case of Kannagi, when Kannagi reported that something has happened to the husband, the king killed himself. In this case also, Porkai Pandian, he removed his hand and put golden hand. So kings used to be the saviors of law, because they know that law is above them. They are not above law. And so this Thiruvalluvar is about 2000 years old, but he is secular. In no place he has used the word Tamil or Tamilian. He has not used the word. He is very, very secular, and many of his couplets are placed in the courts of law. In the courts of law, he has told how a judge has to behave. In fact, you will be very surprised to know that he prescribed the same qualification for the minister as well as the ambassador. Ambassador and minister should have same qualification. They should speak less, both of them. If a minister speaks too much, then the Prime Minister or Chief Minister will kick him out. In the same way, if the ambassador speaks too much in a country of his accreditation, then the country will write, remove this fellow, he talks too much. He should be educated, he should talk less, and at the same time, he should do his work. In fact, there is a wrong conception that the European Christian community has given us law, municipal law as well as international law. It is a fallacy. Even their own legal pundits has contested that it is not the gift of European Christian community to India. In fact, our Indian Penal Code, Indian Evidence Act, all those things might have come in the 19th century. But even prior to that, a more saner system, a more sense with a law with common sense prevailed in our country. In fact, you will be surprised to know that there is a concept like benefit of doubt. A benefit of doubt, anybody can get rid of, because it should be proved beyond doubt. If there is a benefit of doubt, then he will be set free. But in the ancient Tamil system, there is no such thing as benefit of doubt. Necessarily, the person has to be found out, the culprit has to be found out and given punishment. Punishment may vary depending upon his age, depending upon his family circumstances, depending upon his caste. All those things, punishment may vary. But there is no concept like benefit of doubt. And at the same time, now there is a concept of, you may be knowing, the acquisitorial system of prosecution. The culprit, the accused, has to claim, he can always claim ignorance. He can say that I don't know, all these things. But in those times, the person he cannot take credit under this defense. Now people, when in courts we have seen, if anything is asked, I don't know. If anything asked, I don't know. I do not know. You just check up all those things. So this kind of evasive reply you cannot give during the earlier times. So that kind of a saner system, it provides. And
sir, how to identify culprits? Is there any principle to identify them?
Sir, at that time they used all kinds of methods, not the third degree methods. They will use all kinds of methods. In some cases, even gods helped them by oracles. Oracles helped them, gods helped them. So that way they have brought all culprits to book. No culprit has escaped. For example, King Rājadharma, you may be knowing, his brother was killed. His brother Aditya Chola was killed. He was not found out for 15 years. He is a king. He should be the king because he was a number one line in the line of succession. He was number one. Aditya Kariyala was number one, but he was killed through a conspiracy. 15 years it was not found. On 16th year he was found out. One Ravidasan and his 5 associates were found out to be involved in the murder of the prince. So the king, Rājadharma, the second king, has given him punishment, but not a bigger punishment, minor punishment. 1 year conviction and then excommunication from the village and confiscation of his properties. Reason being, he is a Brahmin. Normally those times, Tamil kings have given respect to Manusura Smriti by letter and spirit. So they thought if a Brahmin person is given capital punishment, it will attract him Brahmahati dosam. That's why lesser punishment was given. And that way, in fact, Thiruvalluvar has found out that there is mens rea also, actus rea and mens rea. To constitute a crime, you should have mens rea and actus rea. In Thirukural it says, you should have seivinai, manathuimai, seivinai thuimai. Manam, heart and this thing. Both things has to go together. In fact, I would like to compare our foreign lawgivers to Tamils or Indians, to be very precise. Plato says, law is supreme, supremacy of law. In our place also, we have found out that we have maintained that law is supreme. Aristotle says, democracy is important. We have followed that. Solomon says, mens rea and actus rea. We had. So, we had all those things, and in spite of that, we have never been recognized as a proper person with a legal background. For example, in the American Parliament, there are 23 pictures of the world legal luminaries. They have Aristotle, they have Kent, they have Bentham, they have Hugo Grotius, father of international law, but none from India, none from Tamil Nadu, none from India, because in fact we are more advanced than many of the legal lawgivers. In fact, Hugo Grotius, who is called as the father of international law, he has divided countries into two categories: Christian countries, non-Christian countries, civilized countries, non-civilized countries. But our people, especially Thiruvalluvar, has no such distinction. He treated every country equally, every people equally. So, in all fairness, our people should be called fathers of national law, international law and municipal law. Recently I had been to Jakarta. In the Jakarta, Sukarto, the then president, was reported to be very close to India. He was one of the pillars of non-aligned movement. In the year 1954 also we had a big non-alignment.
Sir, Sukarno
is there. So that in that airport, they have got all the world leaders' photos. Predominantly Pakistan, Muhammad Ali Jinnah's photo they have. But even though we are very close, we are reported to be very close to them, we helped them a lot. No Indian leader's photo is there in Jakarta. So whatever we do, it is not being reciprocated properly. We have been very nice, we have been very generous, but it is not being taken correctly. That's what I felt. But I am happy that Sri Lanka, Singapore has Sage Thiruvalluvar's statue. Thank you very much.
To look at things critically. I think we are not just to glorify our past, we are learn what is positive and to forget what is not good. So yesterday also one, I think BHU Vice Chancellor made that Chola power was a soft power. They did not invade it, but they used commercial power. But I think it is, as I read the Sri Lankan records of the Cholas, it's not the complete truth. Because we are to learn from the past and to correct ourselves and to move forward. So if you try to glorify what is not truth, I think is against our academic effort. So I'm not against any person personally, but I know because I have read recently Sri Lankan history. I'm not a historian, but I have read. And the Cholas were very instrumental in Sri Lanka several times, destroying Buddhist culture, Buddhism, because they were strong Hindu believers. So they were, how to say, they destroyed Buddhist temples and how to say. So therefore, I don't accept. I like the truth, so I have to correct, because here new students are here. We don't need to have wrong impression about anything. So that's one thing. At the same time, Sri Lankan situation, I am a preacher, I am a monk, my duty is to preach, okay? But to follow the teachings is up to Sri Lankans or Indians or any person there. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Rajendran ji, and kindly allow me to proceed further as we are behind the schedule. Next chairperson of the next session is esteemed Professor Swami is waiting for his session, so I would like to proceed further. And एक महत्वपूर्ण बात यह है कि जिस तिरुवल्लुवर की चर्चा हो रही थी उसे हम लोगों को पढ़ना चाहिए, और उसका हिंदी अनुवाद भी वो बहुत अच्छा अनुवाद उपलब्ध है, तो इसलिए जिनकी रुचि है वह उस अनुवादित ग्रंथ को जरूर देखें, तब और अधिक स्पष्टता के साथ इसको हम समझ सकते हैं। अब मैं अधिक समय ना लेते हुए हमारे जो नेक्स्ट स्पीकर हैं प्रोफेसर अमरपाल सिंह जी, जो संकाय अध्यक्ष हैं यूनिवर्सिटी स्कूल ऑफ लॉ एंड लीगल स्टडीज गुरु गोविंद सिंह विश्वविद्यालय दिल्ली में, और इस सेमिनार की जो इसके आयोजन की जो भूमिका थी उसमें भी आपका विशेष योगदान रहा, तो मैं आपसे भी प्रार्थना करता हूं कि जितना संक्षेप में हो सके अपने वक्तव्य को पूर्ण करेंगे। धन्यवाद।
Honorable Chairperson of the session, Vice Chairperson, learned co-panelists, accomplished scholars sitting on the other side of the dais, and my student friends. Let me contextualize what I'm going to talk about today, because this presentation is basically on the idea of justice, and this was actually something that should have happened yesterday. But because another program, pre-planned program was there, and I had to stay back in Delhi for that 1.5 hour presentation yesterday, so I couldn't make it to Varanasi yesterday. I landed here late evening. So therefore my presentation might appear to be some kind of a stand-alone presentation on the idea of justice. But I take the solace from the fact that the underlying theme is the same. And we have, some wonderful stories by Dr. Rajendran ji. So I believe that that underlying theme would really be picked up. And the audience, learned audience might contextualize my presentation, in that perspective. Let me quickly come back to the presentation. I'm talking about the idea of justice basically, and this is the scheme of my presentation. Briefly, I'm talking about the, in its generic sense, what justice really means, how we have structured the idea of justice in the modern context, how Indian system in its original conception actually conceived the idea of justice, what went wrong, where we went wrong exactly during last 200-300 years, because this idea of justice was something that continued even during Mughal phase, if I put it that way, and what exactly we can do. So it's a small idea. There is a slight complex idea, inbuilt in this, which I'm putting in terms of replacing authority by legality, which happened in the British phase. That could be slightly difficult to understand, but otherwise the ideas are, something which can be understood from a common man's perspective as well. Let me quickly introduce the subject. The idea of justice in its most generic sense means this, that everything that is there in this universe has to be at its right place. That everything that we find around has to be in its correct balance. That everybody gets his share in the right way. That he gets his dues properly. All kinds of dues in terms of society, in terms of economy, in terms of, so like Indian constitutional preamble talking about it, justice in a very defined way, which goes exactly in the tradition of India. Justice, social, economic and political. In fact, if you look at the idea of justice from, because this is the Western perspective, the kind of a system that we have inherited. So if you look at the idea of justice from that perspective, the expression is said to have been derived from the expression zunzer, which means to tie, to bind. So this actually refers to that key element that associates an individual with the larger social system and holds the balance. Sarpalli Radhakrishnan would talk about it in terms of justice and duty, whereby he says that this is an element whereby an individual dissolves himself and grows into the society. That's how it happens. So exactly in the similar fashion, this idea of justice is also there, which gives us or gives an individual an opportunity to dissolve himself and grow into the society, which means growing in terms of a useful unit of the society, in the sense of serving the society as such. If we look at, say, Vedic and Upanishadic tradition, then this idea of justice is missing. In fact, the exact translation of the justice, or the nearest translation of justice, is actually nyaya, that we find in Upanishadic literature. And this nyaya is not exactly justice the way we understand it. This nyaya is actually a different tradition altogether, which is logic, basically. So this Tark Shastra and all that is all about, logic. Now, one may raise this question, articulate this question as to why this idea wasn't there in our Vedic and Upanishadic tradition. The answer appears to be simple from Indian perspective, though, foreigners may not understand it that way, but an Indian mind perceives it clearly. Because Indian system actually believed in a very harmonious monism, that everything emerges from one single reality. So this is how it talks about Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya Jivo Brahmaiva Napara. I don't think this requires any kind of an explanation. Because in our tradition, the ultimate reality, that harmony in the entirety of things. And this idea was actually represented in the idea of Rith, which was basically an element to hold the system together, exactly the way expression Zunzaya really means. To hold the whole system together, kind of a all-pervading principle that maintains order in the society. So Rith, taken as a whole, really talk about a collectivity of principles, a collection of principles, whereby the system is held together. This is precisely what dharma also means. Dhi, dharyate it dharma. In fact, there are a lot of other explanations, I will not get into that. But the idea is that this harmonious monism, as I am terming it to be, or you call it Rith for that purpose, is reflected in variety of expressions like benevolent kingship. The first speaker of the session spoke about it, benevolent kingship, environmentalism, where everything in the nature, because it is the expression of the Almighty, egoham bahushyama, kind of a concept that we have. So therefore everything that we see around us ईशावास्यमिदं सर्वम यत्किंचम जगत्याम जगत तेन त्यक्तेन भुंजिता मागृधः कसुस्विद्धनम doesn't require an explanation from Indian perspective. So everything that we see around is the expression of that Almighty. And you know, as it is referred to in Bhagavad Gita, Yagya Chakra. So simply because human or human race has been endowed with sort of reason does not entitle it a very special place in the sun, under the sun. It simply gives him an added responsibility to manage this Yagya Chakra. This is what Dharma is all about. So, the very fact that we are endowed with reason, gives us an added responsibility to manage this. That's why every small thing under the sun, gives us a lesson. Look at Panchatantra, for example. Every small entity in the natural world, gives us some kind of a example, teaches us, some lesson it teaches. That's how the nature becomes the greatest teacher for Pandit Vishnu Sharma of Panchatantra, right? So this is the way we understand it. And then Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. These are some of the expressions of that, Vedic Upanishadic tradition, where the idea of justice, the way we understand and perceive it today, becomes irrelevant if we understand it from that perspective. But nevertheless, because we practice justice the way we understand it today in the Western tradition, we need to appreciate that as well. So I quickly, provide its contents, the structuring of this idea of justice, the way we understand it today. It can be taken from the basic idea that was presented by Aristotle in his Nicomachean Ethics, in which he talks about two types of justice: distributive justice and corrective justice. This distributive justice is matter of a public domain, public law, basically, constitutional law, international law, administrative law, etc., etc., which refers to the macro aspect of, if I put it that way, of justice element, which Rawls and Amartya Sen talk about. So Rawls would talk about those principles, which are to be determined behind the veil of ignorance for the purpose of ensuring the element of justice. And Amartya Sen more or less, explains this idea from a different perspective. But the point is that this idea of justice that Aristotle is talking about in Nicomachean Ethics, distributive justice, is a matter of public law domain. In fact, Amartya Sen's work for which he got Nobel Prize was exactly on the same idea, that famines don't happen because of lack of food, but because of breakdown of distributive machinery of the state system. That's how distributive justice is to be understood, being part of public law domain. Okay. Corrective justice is a private law domain, which can be seen in civil and criminal sides as we generally practice it today. So civil justice can further be subdivided, say from family and community perspective. So we have family law domain on the one side, and then contractual and commercial law domain on the other side. This is civil side of the civil side of the justice. Criminal justice is where the state is saddled with the responsibility of correcting justice. It's a corrective element basically. So state is saddled with the responsibility of retributing the wrong done. Therefore, as and when a crime is done, the state is a necessary party in the litigation process, because retribution is to be done, demonstrative effect has to be there. So not only retribution, but even deterrent effect has to be there. So that's how the whole system of justice works today. Quickly moving on to the Shastric tradition of justice. Basically in Dharma Sutra and Dharma Shastras we have all this. So Yajnavalkya's work basically on Rājadharma, which basically refers to public law associated with distributive justice. I obviously not going to the details, because right now my purpose is to explain the macro element of justice. Vyavahara is the civil law, which involve matters of private law, which I have already explained, family and contractual and commercial law, etc. And then you have the third element, prakirnak, which is misleading basically, because it means scattered, diverse, miscellaneous. But if you look at the entire Shastric literature, prakirnak refers to the criminal jurisdiction basically. I have just picked up a few ideas that I shall quickly rush through, given the paucity of time and the constraints of time. Prakirnak refers to a body of law where the king is not a judge basically. King is not perceived to be a judge delivering justice. Rather, he is expected to act like a magistrate, aiming at the chastisement of the wrongdoer. So basically the same idea as you have today, as Dr. Rājadharma was talking about. We have a better system probably. And what went wrong, I'll discuss it. So the king appears as a magistrate, which the whole idea is at the chastisement of the wrongdoer, which is retribution and deterrence, both, to these two factors taken together. What was the justice dispensation process? Quickly rushing through. Criminal justice system, that is prakirnak, as it is noted down, and I am picking up from Narad and Katyayana basically, just two elements. It is characterized by the fact that the king take suo motu notice of prakirnak. I believe 15 minutes over, so I have another 15 minutes. Or bell has gone
5 minutes more.
Acha, so I get just 20 minutes.
Yes.
Okay. So Narad and Katyan talk about it. I will just skip this idea and move on quickly. Justice, the list I had given in the previous slide, quoting from Narad and Katyayan. This prakirnak, this is important for us to note, that prakirnak varies from author to author and from place to place. The ultimate duty of the king in this context is summarized by Manu as being a kantak shodhak. So kantak shodhan is basically the function of the king in a criminal jurisdiction, rooting out the thorns of the realm. It talks about the machinery for investigation and inquiry as well. So you have two offices, Stobhak and Suchak, which is like modern policing and investigation agency. You have two types of tribunals as well, which is Dharmasthya and Kantak Shodhan. So Kantak Shodhan is criminal jurisdiction and Dharmasthya is civil jurisdiction. And then you have a very elaborate system of penalties, in view of time, nature and status. Nature of the crime, time of the crime, status of the wrongdoer. Whether he relapses into criminality or not. So for example, just one example, that penalty for theft differs from the point of view of the status of the individual. At one place you find in Apasthamba, in fact, where if say a stealing is done and the person is a Shudra, he will have to repay double of the price of that element. If he happens to be a Vaishya, then 4 times of that. If he is Kshatriya, 8 times of that. And if he is a Brahmin, 16 times of that. So that's how this, very elaborate system of penalties is there. This is actually referred to as Vyavahar Pad or Vivad Pad in the entire Shastric tradition. There's an elaborate system of recovery of debt, restitution of deposits, rules between associate or partners, elaborate system of all that. I'm quickly rushing through it, skipping some of them. And then the jurisdiction was largely decentralized. So everybody who is exercising a particular activity seems to have been invested with the legal right to hear disputes between its members. Brahaspati talks about it, and you have general competence like Kula, Shreni and Gana. Now this is like a family group, guild of persons, or the temple Brahmins. These are the 3 jurisdiction. The only point that we need to take note of this is, in this context, that these are not exactly in the line as we understand it in terms of appellate authority, because they had concurrent jurisdiction basically. So there was no appellate kind of a jurisdiction there, though that element is also available in some Dharma Sutras. This is important, and I just back for a couple of minutes to finish this. It's an important idea that with the onset of modernity, as I was talking about in the beginning, when the British Empire established authority, the idea of authority of the law is replaced by the element of legality, the positive law. There's a lot of literature on the subject. In fact, even in modern English literature we have, like Robert Lingat talking about it, as to what kind of impact it had on the existing system when the idea of authority is replaced by the idea of legality, the positive law. So, shall be very difficult for me to explain it in a minute or so, but nevertheless, authority is something that has no constraining power in itself. It basically puts itself forward. It shows the way, what kind of a behavior one should have. It doesn't impose itself. So, the kind of a distinction that, Ronald Dworkin makes in principles and rules. So, when rules collide, one rule will, give way to the other. So, say for example, if there's a rule that you can drive on a given road, say with 40 kilometers speed, the other rule which says that you can drive with 60 kilometers speed would really, will die in a way. But that is not the case of principles. Principles are something different. Principles remains as a floating law. You will have to reach there. How you reach there is a different story altogether. So this authority of the law, which was deferred, but nevertheless it survived, for another type of a, situation to be handled. Now what happens when the British system comes into play is that this authority of the law is replaced by legality, which means that now a judge will actually draw the meaning from the tradition and will fix the meaning for all times to come, because it has to be positive law. So therefore, now the law shall develop not according to the tradition, but from the judgment of the judge, which he has derived at one point of time. Thereby, the authority of the law was dried up. That way, the authority of the law was, at once dried up, so to say, because now it is open for, only one way to evolve it. So that's how the authority was replaced by legality. And I quickly make another point, though there are a lot of other issues that I intended to talk about, but just a minute or so. What happens to the justice element in this process? So just a minute or so. We need to understand it. Law is not an end in itself. Law is a medium of dispensing justice. But the system that was designed now, in fact, delivers judgment, not justice. That's why my fellow law students will remember it. We call our courts not the courts of justice. We call them courts of law, thereby putting justice onto the back burner. So we are now operating not the courts of justice, courts of laws. Justice remains a distant dream. This happens because of this, authority being replaced by the legality. So justice is not the responsibility of the courts, though it could be the aim of the whole process. This is how we need to understand it. And today we may find a lot of judgments which are technically and logically sound, but they have nothing to do with justice. We can figure out a lot of judgments. I'm a law student, so I can keep on giving a lot of examples, but the time is not there. The last slide, and in 1 minute I finish it. How the judgment-based law is to be turned into justice-oriented judgment and justice-oriented law is the question for us today. For the purpose of suggesting a clue as to how do we resolve it, I just give one example. The point of just an explanation I would like to, the point of divergence between the present legal tradition and the ancient thought process that we are talking about today, they appear to be irreconcilable at the moment. That is the point. And going back to the roots of Indian consciousness is something that appears to be slightly difficult. But my understanding is that if we keep on continuously reinterpreting these ideas, continuously talking about these ideas the way we are doing it today, probably in the days to come, as you know, the Indian tradition is supposed to be very absorptive in nature. It absorbs everything. Probably it will absorb the good elements of this justice process itself and will emerge into another and stronger system of justice dispensation system. There are a lot of issues that I would have otherwise talked about. Thank you so much for giving this opportunity, and sorry for not being able to explain a lot of issues that I initially designed. Thank you so much.
The constitution is made by the public, and when there are contradictions, then a legal system can deliver the judgments or sound an alarm, so correct this system. Then when the system is corrected, or constitution or the laws are corrected, then the justice is delivered. So ultimately we have to develop this system so that justice are delivered. Then who is responsible and accountable for delivering justice? Then राजधर्म का प्रश्न आता है. हमेशा राजधर्म की बात जब चलती है तो लोग सोचते हैं कि कोई राजा है उसका धर्म है. नहीं है, ये व्यक्ति का विषय नहीं है. राज एक व्यक्ति नहीं है, राज एक सिस्टम है. तो हमेशा हमारे शास्त्रों का अध्ययन करने में जो दृष्टि चाहिए वो दृष्टि लोप होने के कारण से बहुत कंफ्यूजन्स हो गए. लोग सोचते हैं राजा एक व्यक्ति है तो उनको करेक्ट करना है, या तो उनके गुणों के बारे में, उनके एक्ट के बारे में चर्चा हो रही है, तो अभी राजा नहीं है तो क्यों सोचना है. नहीं है. सो द होल सिस्टम के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं. तो राजधर्म की जो चर्चा है ये, इसके लिए हमें एक दृष्टि से इसको सोचना होगा. तो वाई दिस हैज टू बी स्टडीड. तो उसमें मैं थोड़ा महाभारत के मूल श्लोकों के द्वारा आपके सामने 2-4 बिंदु रखना चाहता हूं, जिससे आपके आने वाले दिनों में आपके स्टडी हो सकता है. वार्ता मूलो क्षयम लोका. हमारे जो सिस्टम है ये ट्रेड और कॉमर्स, ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. तो उसके लिए त्रय्या वै धार्यते सदा. Basically, science, technology and management, these provides the foundation for the entire commerce and trade. Tatsarvam vartate samyak yada rakshati bhumipah. All this sustains when the state protects the system. तो यदि हम मूल धारणा से हम जाएंगे, अल्टीमेटली हम बात करेंगे हमारे जो लोक जो है सुख से रहे. तो सुख कैसे आएगा? सुखस्य मूलम धर्मः, धर्मस्य मूलम अर्थः, अर्थस्य मूलम राज्यम, राज्यस्य मूलम इंद्रिय विजयः. तो सी द सीक्वेंस हाउ दे आर कनेक्टेड. हमारे आज के सिस्टम में हमने क्या कर दिया, एक एक बीच में एक एक सूत्र को निकाल दिया. तो सुखस्य मूलम अर्थः, सुखस्य मूलम अर्थः हो गया. तो ये जो है धर्म दृष्टि हमने निकाल दिया, तो नेचुरली वहाँ एक थोड़ा गैप आएगा. उस दृष्टि से हमें ये धर्म दृष्टि के बारे में जब बात करते हैं तो इसको सारे धर्म, प्रजाधर्म, राजधर्म, ये सारे एकत्रित करके अखंड रूप से उसको देखना होगा. तो सुख का मूल धर्म है, धर्म का मूल अर्थ है, तो अर्थ का मूल राज्य है. सो राज्य का मूल क्या है? हाउ टू बिल्ड ए स्टेट. It's very interesting. Everybody should be under control. Some control system हमें जब तक नहीं बनाएंगे तो इंद्रिय विजय. This is very interesting. आज हम जो स्टेट का सिस्टम देख रहे हैं तो इंद्रिय विजय का एक जय प्राप्त हो रहा है. तो आज के हमारे जो गवर्नेंस सिस्टम देखेंगे, जो इंद्रिय विजय कर सकता है वही राज्य कर सकता है. तो लोग उसको स्वीकार लिया है. तो इसका उदाहरण हमारे सामने प्रस्तुत है. तो इस दृष्टि से हमें इस राजधर्म को किस रूप से देखना है, इसके बारे में 2-4 बिंदु आपके सामने रखना चाहता हूं। तो दूसरा पॉइंट है, यथा राजन हस्तिपदे पदानि संलीयन्ते सर्वसत्वोद्भवानि। बाकी सारे जो प्राणियों का पद है वो हस्ति पद में अंतर्गत हो जाता है। तो ये उदाहरण दिया गया, महाभारत का उदाहरण है। हस्ति यानी गज, तो एलिफेंट के जो बड़ा बड़ा हस्ती होता है उसके अंदर सभी प्राणियों का पद अंदर चला जाता है। एवं धर्वान राजधर्मेषु सर्वान, तो सर्वान संप्रलेयान निबोध, तो इसके अंदर अंतर्गत हो जाता है। आप राजधर्म को ठीक करोगे तो सारा धर्म ठीक हो जाएगा। तो दिस इज वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग एग्जाम्पल, एनामली है। तो हम इसको यदि हम आज के दृष्टि से देखेंगे तो इसको हमेशा हम छोटे छोटे टुकड़ों में, हमने जो मतलब इंडिविजुअल राइट्स के बारे में ज्यादा बात करते हैं, ना कि स्टेट के मतलब ड्यूटीज के बारे में। हम ऐसा उल्टा हो गया है, इंडिविजुअल राइट्स को प्रोटेक्ट करो, ऐसा नहीं करना है। तो ड्यूटीज को प्रोटेक्ट करो, क्योंकि इंडिविजुअल राइट्स जब प्रोटेक्ट करते रहेंगे तब हम कोई स्टेट कुछ बना नहीं सकता है। तो आज इंडिविजुअल राइट्स पे इतना भारी पड़ गए तो स्टेट कैनॉट मूव एनीथिंग। तो हमेशा इंडिविजुअल के राइट के बारे में बात हो रही है, स्टेट कैनॉट फॉर्म एनी लॉ, क्योंकि इंडिविजुअल राइट्स के बारे में बात हो जाती है तो स्टेट कैनॉट फॉर्म लॉ, स्टेट पीछे हट जाती है। तो इस दृष्टि से हमें देखना होगा, राइट्स डिवाइड एंड ड्यूटीज बाइंड, ये हमारे दृष्टि है। इस दृष्टि के आधार पर रिकंस्ट्रक्ट करने के लिए हमें स्टेट का और एक इंडिविजुअल व्यक्ति का रोल के बारे में भी हमें सोचना होगा। तो हमेशा जो है स्टेट का रोल बहुत बड़ा होता है, तो आप छोटे छोटे विषयों में ध्यान मत दीजिए, स्टेट के होलिस्टिक व्यू में स्टेट का बड़ा ध्यान दीजिए। यही हस्ती पद का उदाहरण है। तो तीसरी बात मैं आपके सामने रखना चाहता हूं, ये बात पिछले स्पीकर में भी आया है। तो जब एक राजा के रूप में प्रतिष्ठित हो जाता है या कोई गवर्नमेंट हो, तो वो यदि आई कैन टेक एनी डिसीजन, ये जो भाव आता है उसके प्रति हमारे प्राचीन व्यवस्था में एक शब्द है अदंड्योस्मि। अदंड्योस्मि ऐसा नहीं सोचो, धर्मदंड्योसी, धर्मदंड्योसी, धर्मदंड्योसी। आप कोई अदंड्य नहीं है तो आपके धर्म का दंड है। तो अल्टीमेटली ये जो गवर्नमेंट के ऊपर, जो सिस्टम के ऊपर जो है वो धर्म है। तो धर्म धर्म अंत है क्या? तो धर्म के बारे में सारे सोच रहे तो धर्म ही अंतिम है क्या? यदि ऐसा सोचेंगे तो मुझे और दिखता है परित्यजेद अर्थ कामो यौस्याताम धर्म वर्जितो। धर्म और अर्थ और काम को छोड़ देना है, यहां धर्म नहीं है। धर्मम चाप्यसुधो असुखोदर्कम लोक विकृष्टमेव च। डेमोक्रेसी ऊपर चला गया। वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग स्टेटमेंट है। देखिए, धर्मम अपनी लोक विकृष्टम न कुर्यात, कहां जा रहा है? मतलब हम जो धर्म ऊपर सोच रहे हैं, लेकिन धर्म के ऊपर भी कुछ है। वो क्या है? लोक विकृष्ट यदि है तो धर्म को भी छोड़ देना है। तो ये अंतिम में इसमें मनु में भी है और बृहस्पति नीति शास्त्र में भी है। तो गवर्नमेंट को कैसे करना है? तो मैं धर्म मेरे लिए है तो इसे धर्म करूंगा, ऐसा नहीं है। यदि लोक विकृष्ट है, लोक यदि नहीं चाहता है, तो उस काल में धर्म को भी छोड़ देना। क्योंकि ये जो डेमोक्रेसी को अंतिम लक्ष्य के रूप में जो रखा है, तो ये जो आज हम भारत में सोच रहे हैं कि हमारे यहाँ डेमोक्रेसी नहीं थी, हमारे यहाँ कोई लीगल सिस्टम नहीं था, संविधान नहीं था, कल्पना नहीं थी, इसे बाहर आना चाहिए, क्योंकि ये सारा वही बात है। तो मैं इसको ऐसा सोच रहा हूँ कि हम यदि सोचेंगे तो सुख है, धर्म है, उसके बीच में स्टेट है। लेकिन यूएस में क्या हुआ, हमेशा इंडिविजुअल राइट्स के बारे में जब सोचते हैं तो स्टेट हैज मेजर रोल। कैसे हो जाता है? मैं ऐसा सोचता हूँ मेरे लिए सारा प्रपंच है, आई कैन परचेज एनीथिंग, आई कैन यूज एनीथिंग एंड एवरी रेस्ट ऑफ द वर्ल्ड इज मेंट फॉर मी। ये जो भाव से हम राइट ओरिएंटेड सोसाइटी में चले जाते हैं, तब हम सोचते हैं कि मेरे लिए है तो आई कैन परचेज एनीथिंग, आई कैन यूज एनीवन। तब आ जाते हैं दूसरों का राइट का प्रोटेक्शन करते हैं। तो प्रोटेक्शन करने के लिए स्टेट बीच में आता है, तो स्टेट का रोल बढ़ जाता है। आप जब इतने बड़े स्टेट को, मतलब छोटा स्टेट में ठीक है, लेकिन 10 लोग हैं तो उसको आप स्टेट के द्वारा कर सकते हैं, लेकिन 1 करोड़ 100 करोड़ आबादी में यदि स्टेट का रोल बढ़ जाएगा तो गवर्नमेंट रोल बढ़ जाएगा, तो गवर्नमेंट कोलैप्स हो जाता है। तो इस दृष्टि से हमारे सिस्टम में, हमारे देश के लिए हमें बनाना पड़ेगा। इसलिए आज जो बात आ रही है, लेस गवर्नमेंट एंड मोर गवर्नेंस, यही बात, लेस गवर्नमेंट एंड मोर गवर्नेंस, यही बात को हमारे प्राचीन काल में कहा गया है। तो आप यदि देखेंगे तो इस श्लोक, नैव राज्यम न राजा आसीत् न दंडो न च दांडिकः धर्मेणैव प्रजा सर्वा रक्षन्ति स्म परस्परम। तो नैव राज्यम, ये महाभारत का वचन है। दिस इज द डेफिनेशन ऑफ गुड गवर्नेंस। नैव राज्यम न राजा आसीत् न दंडो न च दांडिकः। ये सिस्टम नहीं है ऐसा मतलब नहीं है इसका, सिस्टम सारा है, लेकिन सिस्टम का रोल कम है। जब सिस्टम का रोल कम हो जाता है तो लेस गवर्नमेंट चला जाता है। यही गुड गवर्नेंस का डेफिनेशन है। मैं गोंडवाना यूनिवर्सिटी में वाइस चांसलर था, वहाँ के गांव में चला गया मैं। आप अभी नोट कर सकते हैं, यू शुड, स्टूडेंट्स ऑफ लॉ शुड रियली विजिट दैट प्लेस। भारत के पहली ग्राम सभा का स्थापना वहाँ हुई है। ये लेखा मेढा एक छोटा गांव है, वहाँ पर ट्राइबल विलेज है। वहाँ के एक व्यक्ति से मिलने गया मैं, देवाजी तोफा, बहुत चौथी कक्षा पास की उन्होंने। अभी प्रोफेसर डॉक्टर राजेंद्र भी बता रहे थे, चौथी कक्षा पास की, उनके पास कोई डिग्री नहीं है, कुछ नहीं है। उनको मैंने बुलाया मेरे यूनिवर्सिटी में लेक्चर देने के लिए। तो उन्होंने पॉलिटिकल साइंस, सोशल साइंस के स्टूडेंट के लिए, लोग सोच रहे थे क्या बोलेंगे, लेकिन आपको आश्चर्य होगा, उनका स्टेटमेंट था, लेक्चर का स्टेटमेंट था, दिल्ली में हमारा सरकार, गाँव में हम ही सरकार। उनका टाइटल था, दिल्ली में हमारा सरकार, गांव में हम ही सरकार। तो ये जो स्टेटमेंट, इसके पीछे जो पावरफुल आइडिया है, वो आइडिया कोई वेस्टर्न आइडिया से नहीं आया था, क्योंकि वो कोई पढ़ाई नहीं की उन्होंने। तो उनका आइडिया जो भी है वो ट्राइबल प्रैक्टिसेस से है। तो अपने जनजाति के व्यवहार में जो है उसके आइडिया, उनका इतना बहुत पावरफुल लेक्चर वहां रहा, तो इतने आइडियाज उन्होंने दिया, तो जो हमारे टेक्स्ट बुक्स में नहीं मिलते हैं। तो आज हमारे लिए, हमारे मतलब हमारे देश के न केवल ग्रांथिक, मतलब ये नहीं बोल रहा हूं कि हमारे ग्रंथों में ही आइडिया है, प्रैक्टिस में भी आइडियाज है। इसलिए ग्रंथ और प्रैक्टिस, इन दोनों में जितने भी आइडियाज मिलते हैं उसको इकट्ठा करते हुए हमें रीबिल्ड करने का एक प्रयास करने के लिए समय आ गया है। तो मैं
कह सकते हैं इंडियन कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ रूल ऑफ लॉ है,
यही देखिए कितनी सोच है उसमें, कितनी सोच है, कितना डिफरेंस है। मतलब हम देख रहे हैं कि
वेस्टर्न कॉन्सेप्ट और ये ईस्टर्न कॉन्सेप्ट,
इसके अंतर जो दिख रहा है यहाँ पर, हाँ, जो अंतर दिख रहा है, तो ये अंतर को हमें समझना चाहिए। महाभारत में वही कहा गया जो प्रैक्टिस में ट्राइबल एरिया में, ट्राइबल जनजाति में जो प्रैक्टिस में है वही है, क्योंकि मैं उनका दोनों का संबंध नहीं है, क्योंकि उन्होंने महाभारत नहीं पढ़ा है, उन्होंने कोई लॉ नहीं पढ़ी है। फिर भी उन्होंने कहा कि हाँ, मतलब उनका लेक्चर में जो आइडियाज थे, मुझे महाभारत ही कह रहा है, शांति पर्व कह रहा है। तो ये शांति पर्व का विचार जो है वो हमारे सोफिस्टिकेटेड वे में संस्कृत में मिलता है, लेकिन वो प्रैक्टिस में, सोच में, जनजाति व्यवहार में है। तो हमें इसको समझना चाहिए। ये भारत की विद्या जो प्रैक्टिस में है उसको हमें दिखाने के लिए एक अवसर मिलना चाहिए। शायद इसको हम यदि इस तरह के विचार सत्र में, वो अल्टीमेटली आज इंडियन नॉलेज सिस्टम्स को हमारे सारे डिसिप्लिन के साथ जोड़ने का जो प्रयास कर रहे हैं, बेसिकली आइडिएशन में हमें जाना चाहिए, ना कि केवल टेक्स्ट बुक्स में उसको रिकंस्ट्रक्शन करने में नहीं है। थोड़ा आइडिएशन यदि हम ठीक से कर देते हैं तो सारा हो जाएगा। तो मैं अंतिम रूप से एक ही विषय आपके सामने रखता हूं। तो राजधर्म को जब हम पढ़ेंगे, राजधर्म को लोग पढ़ते रहेंगे, टेक्स्ट अवेलेबल होंगे आपको, लेकिन उसमें जब तक हम 5 डिफरेंट आइडियाज को, मैं जितने भी पुस्तक पढ़ा उसमें नहीं मिला मुझे। राजधर्म कहते ही उसमें लोग सोचते हैं राज ऐसा होना चाहिए, नहीं है। उसमें राज गुण अलग है, क्वालिटीज, राज कर्तव्य अलग है, ड्यूटीज, राजनीति अलग है, पॉलिसीज, राज कार्य अलग है, राज के बड़े बड़े प्रोजेक्ट्स, और प्रिंसिपल्स अलग है, राज की मर्यादा। तो इसको अलग अलग करके देखने का हमारा प्रयास होना चाहिए, क्योंकि आज जो कि मिश्रित है ये सारे। हमारे यदि ग्रंथों में देखेंगे तो नीति, डूज एंड डोंट्स और क्वालिटीज, इस सारा मिश्रित रूप में उपलब्ध होता है। तो उसको अलग अलग करके उसको एक प्रैक्टिकल एस्पेक्ट्स में देखने का प्रयास करना चाहिए। मैं यहाँ जितने भी लीगल के छात्र यहाँ है, उनको मैं आह्वान करता हूँ, आप इस दिशा में काम करिए। एक ही दो उदाहरण आपके सामने रख के मैं समाप्त करता हूँ। तो जब कौटिल्य लिखते हैं तो सुखस्य मूलम धर्मः, धर्मस्य मूलम अर्थः, अर्थस्य मूलम राज्यम, राज्यस्य मूलम इंद्रिय विजयः। तो ये बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग चीज है। जो स्टेट कंस्ट्रक्ट करना है तो इंद्रिय विजय होना चाहिए। ये कहाँ से क्या संबंध है? मतलब आप एक व्यक्ति के क्वालिटी के आधार पर स्टेट कैसे कंस्ट्रक्ट करते हैं? इसका कोई रिलेशन ही नहीं दिखता। तो स्टेट यदि कंस्ट्रक्ट करना है तो बहुत लोगों का मत के द्वारा हम स्टेट को बिल्ड कर सकते हैं। द राज्य इज क्रिएटेड विद बहुमत, तो इसका इंद्रिय विजय से क्या संबंध है? तो ये इंटरेस्टिंग चीज है। तो इंद्रिय विजय जो है, जो हम बोलते हैं, तो महाभारत में भी शांति पर्व में शत्रु विजय से पहले, जो हम शत्रु को जब तक विजय नहीं कर पाते कोई लीडर नहीं बन सकता है। तो शत्रु का विजय करने से पहले वो कहते हैं आत्मा जय सदा राज्ञा ततो जयाश्च शत्रु। तो जब तक आत्मजय नहीं मिलता है तब तक शत्रु को जय नहीं कर सकते। लीडरशिप नहीं बनते तो लोग आपको रिकॉग्नाइज करेंगे, बहुमत नहीं बनेगा। तो ये जो प्रोसेस है ये केवल एक व्यक्ति का गुण का विकास नहीं है। तो अल्टीमेटली इट्स लीडरशिप एंड कंस्ट्रक्शन ऑफ द स्टेट, तो बिल्डिंग ऑफ द स्टेट। इसको इंद्रिय विजय मूल तत्व से जो बना है, आज हमारे देश में जो प्रधानमंत्री है तो इंद्रिय विजय तत्व से बलिष्ठ हो गए, तो ना कि केवल व्यक्ति का चयन से नहीं है। तो एक्चुअली इंद्रिय विजय जब प्राप्त करता है लोग, मतलब अपना पूरा छोड़ देता है, तो अपने लिए कुछ नहीं सोचता है, तब ही इंद्रिय विजय बनता है। तो आत्मजय बोलते हैं। इस तरह के हमारे मूलभूत अवधारणाओं के प्रति हमारा ध्यान होना चाहिए। तो दूसरा जो है एक्शन ओरिएंटेड। तो उत्थानम ही नरेंद्राणाम बृहस्पतिर्भाषत राजधर्मस्ततो तथा तस्य मूलम। तो राजधर्म जो है उसका मूल है उत्थान यानी एक्शन ओरिएंटेड किंग। तो आज हम जो बातें करने के लिए लोग होते हैं लेकिन एक्शन ओरिएंटेड लोग कम होते हैं। तो इस दृष्टि से दो उदाहरण आपके सामने रखा। तो इस तरह आप अनेक उदाहरण के साथ हमारे प्राचीन नीति शास्त्रों को, राजधर्म शास्त्रों को देख सकते हैं। इन्हीं शब्दों से मेरा उत्तर समाप्त करता हूँ।
Thank you, sir, for your thought-provoking discourse. Our next speaker is Professor Pushp Lakshmanan. He is going to speak on revisiting the Constitution from the ancient Indian legal perspective. Revisiting the Constitution from the ancient Indian legal perspective. So, Professor Lakshmanan.
Or the legal principles, the procedures that are given in our ancient texts, they can be made into our, the practice in our lives. And we have seen many instances by way of stories or by way of, the life accounts given in the texts, how they were very effectively practiced. But how they can be made use of in our modern, day-to-day life now, in the present context, is the question that we are all jointly thinking. Because the predominantly what the concepts that are coming up are dharma, nyaya, niti, and different procedures, civil as well as criminal. How they will be applied in the present context. We have laws. These laws were enacted at different times by different people. When the British were here, that they have imported many laws. They made the law in the British Parliament and extended it into India. And after that, we have made our own laws to suit our needs and based on the same models. So how we are going to capture these concepts or the principles into the today's legal system? It's a very challenging task. Dharma, where can we put? Because Dharma, Rājadharma, where will we put? One way is that, it's Dharma for me, that I will follow it individually. Or as a customary norm, we can follow in the society. If it is not captured in the form of a statute or into the constitution. So we have to work on that. How it will get into the legal system. That's the most important part that we have to think about. One way is that we can bring these principles into enacted laws. That is one way. And the other way is that bringing some most important aspects into the constitution itself. If you bring it into the constitution, its impact will be more. And it will guide the governments when they make laws, when the parliament or the state legislatures make the laws, that will be translated into a law, a legally binding law. Or it will also reflect in the principal policies. It is possible. So my presentation is going to be on how it can be read into the constitution. Is it possible and how far it is possible? It's only a try because it's most challenging task. The last one to touch. But kindly bear with me how it could shape. It's still a work in progress. We all should work together to make it possible. Why we should make, and how it is going to be in the constitution, I will tell you one by one, how we can think about it. Yes. The constitution was produced by the legal luminaries of the day. When we got independence, we wanted to rule ourselves with our own laws because all our rights have been taken away, suppressed and oppressed. So we wanted to rule ourselves with our own systems. So we made a constitution. We wanted to make India a great country through this constitution. We wanted to govern ourselves, we wanted to redeem our rights, and we wanted to also secure social justice, political justice, economic justice, all these noble visions indeed. We have done that. But at the time when we framed the constitution, our constitution makers, they primarily they looked at the Western models and other models, sources found in other countries, different countries. Unfortunately, they would have looked at what we are doing today, they would have done it a threadbare analysis. What best from our own systems can be put into the constitution would have been done. Unfortunately, that could not happen at the time. We need not go into the postmortem. And most of the features into the constitution right now we have been borrowed from UK constitution, United States, France, Ireland, Germany, Soviet Union, now Russia, Japan, Canada, South Africa, Australia, these countries. There are many aspects like, republic, even the words republic, India is a cradle of republic. We have the evidences from Vaishali. But we looked at elsewhere, even to bring this. Republic, liberty, equality, fraternity in the preamble. All are, more than, in all our texts, these are ensured. But we have not made it as a base for our constitution. Different forms of justice that we have in the constitution preamble. Procedure established by law. All the legal scholars and the professors, they are all very, they all know. My own gurus are sitting here. The fundamental rights part that we have is based on the England Bill of Rights, US Bill of Rights, France Declaration of Rights of Man, like that. We are inspired by them and we made slight changes here and there and to suit, we have made it. Including fundamental duties. In the initial constitution, we did not have fundamental duties. Later on in 1976, by way of 42nd Amendment, we have inserted one part. And we looked at the USSR constitution to model these fundamental duties for us. As if we don't have any duty system here. The whole system is based on duties, not even rights. Dharma is, The individual dharma is based on the individual duties, how I should live individually as well as towards the society. The judicial system, all this, I need not go into this much. Is it that nothing happened in the constitution when the Constituent Assembly, did they not think about it at all? They thought about it, but much later it happened. If you look at the Constituent Assembly debates, there were many concerns raised by the members of the Constituent Assembly. I will only quote two quotations just to put it into the context. When the first draft has been already made and it was, about to be approved, these concerns were raised. And the member, the respected member, very erudite scholars, everyone, at that time, tall figures in the Indian, scene. Sri Anandasayanam Iyengar, he made this observation in the deliberation. Sir, objections of fundamental importance have been raised to the draft constitution as it has emerged from the drafting committee. Please read this, this is worth reading. I agree that there is nothing characteristic in this constitution reflecting our ancient culture or traditions. Open agreed statement. It is true that it is a patchwork of some of the old constitutions of the West, not even some of the modern constitutions of the West, with a replica of the Government of India Act 1935. It is true that they have been brought together and put into a whole. That's what happened. This happened on 9th November 1948 in the Constituent Assembly. There is another statement. Please don't read into the names and all. Names are not important. What happened there, just to put a context. Sri N. Madhav Rao makes a statement. Several speakers have criticized the draft on the ground that while borrowing some of its provisions from alien sources, including Government of India Act 1935, it has not woven into its fabric any of the elements of ancient Indian polity. Then, those of our friends who wanted indigenous ideas of polity to be embodied in the constitution would have to admit that while there might have been republics in the northern India in the days of Alexander, by and large, kingship was an integral part of Indian polity. They were, because one of the main arguments here is that we have to make Indian villages at the center point of governance. If they are good, they are able to govern well and they have everything, then the whole country will be prosperous. So let us make it a central point. But that was rejected later on, in this discussion. They say here, why did not the exponents of these fine ideas press them on the attention of the House at the proper time and secure their acceptance when the constitution was more or less settled during the last session? You have not asked earlier. Why are you asking now, after the draft has already come, now we are going to finalize it? Why do they not do so even now if they have any feasible suggestions to make? Why should they blame the drafting committee for not incorporating the draft? What can only be described as a belated second thoughts? I think it is a collective, misfortune or a failure that we could not put the proper perspective at the right time. So now we are in this situation. And this happened on 9th November 1948. Now, this is the land of Dharma. Now I think by now we are all, we understood that, what kind of a country it is. It's a land of Dharma. This is the country which taught to the world what is the meaning of justice. The justice himself punishing himself, isn't it? That kind of instances we can have here. Stories after stories. These are not woven stories. These are examples happened. Rule of law has been deep-rooted concept during since Vedic period. And this is the mother of democracy, we all know, and the cradle of republic. All evidences are here. Starting from Vedas, Upanishads, Dharma Shastras, Yajnavalkya Smritis and other Smritis, Manusmriti, Arthashastra, everything. I need not repeat it. From the time immemorial, the Indian rulers upheld the justice and rule of law without any bias or exception. This has been Rājadharma here. And if anybody has done wrong, he has been removed, or the actions happened. This is how we lived. When the constitution was framed, I would only think that a golden opportunity was lost at that time. How we can do differently now? Before looking at it, I have compared different other constitutions in other countries. How are they doing? When I looked at most of these European and Western constitutions, they are all parroting more or less same. Because they are all modeled on the same kind of a philosophy. Then I was inspired to look at the South Asian and Southeast Asian constitutions. Because our culture pervades there. And how they have modeled. Cambodia, Indonesia, then Bhutan, Nepal, all of them, they have very good features. But one constitution that has more of inspiring features, just to give an example, is Bhutan. I'll just show this here. Bhutan, you see, this is the original constitution with the sketch that we have in India, Indian constitution signed by the constituent members. And it says that we the people, how they have captured, they are not shying away from their own culture. They express their culture in the constitution itself. Their deep-rooted culture, they are telling, their legal systems. Blessed by the triple gem, because that's basically a Buddhist country. So they are happy to say that. Blessed by the triple gem is Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. The protector of our guardian deities. The wisdom of our leaders, the everlasting fortunes of the Felden Drukpa, and the guidance of His Majesty the King. Solemnly pledging ourselves to strengthen the sovereignty of Bhutan, to secure the blessings of liberty, to ensure justice and tranquility, to enhance the unity, happiness, and well-being of the people for all time. And this is the country which has given importance to happiness, global happiness index. So they have gone for that. So what they want to achieve, they have not looked at any of the other constitutions. Originally they thought, whatever they wanted, they chose to write it. That's how it is. If you look at the scheme of the constitution, you see the table of contents. I have only taken the first page. You see there is an article, separate article on spiritual heritage. It is not only the governance document, it is an overall document governing everything in the life, individual's life also. Spiritual heritage, that should be one article. Culture, there is another article. Constitution. Environment, there is another full article. This is how they have. And I have just given the sample how they have written Article 3 and all. I don't read this, just you can see it later. So how this is spiritual and all. How they are writing this. See here, only one thing I will say here about the state policy, Article 9. They say, the state shall endeavor to apply the principles of state policy set out in this article to ensure good quality of life for the people of Bhutan in a progressive and prosperous country. And what they do for that purpose, the state shall strive to promote those conditions that will enable the pursuit of gross national happiness. It is the national choice, not modeled on anybody's choice. This is beautiful. Why don't we say in our preamble that this is what is our country and this is what we want to achieve? So what is there, ours there? I think we need to seriously relook at ours. I will finish it in 3 minutes. Quickly, I'll try.
One of the Indian constitution deals with the composite culture.
Yes, I'll come to that. Because there are many aspects we have to think about it. Okay. But very fortunately, because law is one thing, constitution one thing, our life is another thing. Our life is based on the Vedic and our, Shastras and Puranas or whatever. Our life is based on our own culture. We do it. And very luckily, our judiciary has very well, taken the lead and tried to always bring these values into the judicial system. Whenever it interpreted, it tried to do that. I think this practice has to go still forward. I only felt that if we make a question that, we have to bring something into the constitution, what should go into the constitution? Just one or two points just occurred to me. Maybe there are many more out there. And as legal scholars, if we make a detailed research, it can emerge as very many aspects to be included. I thought that certain things like Sarvadharma Sambhavana. We have adopted secularism. We have inserted. It was also not in the original constitution. We have made amendment and included it. Secularism, the concept of secularism in West is different and East is different. And in India is special, not just different. Sarva Dharma equal. And this is coexistence. It's not just equal. It is coexistence. And we live together. It's like a garden. Any bird can come and stay here. Isn't it? And fundamental duties, when they wanted to make amendment, they looked at USSR. We have Patanjali Yoga Sutras, if anyone would have read, Yam Niyam, I'm going to say that. Like that there are many, I will expound it in the next one. I can save the time. You see this. If we want to look at the code of conduct, the duty for any individual, there cannot be a better example from, Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. Ahimsa, Satya, Aste, Brahmacharya, Aparikaha. Ahimsa, non-violence. With one non-violence and Satya, we got independence. Everybody worked on that. If we are able to follow this, non-stealing, Brahmacharya, non-greed, these are the things. Sutra, 230. Then, Swach, Santosh, Tapas, Swadhyay, Ishwar Pranidhan. These are, one is for the individuals, the other is towards the society. At the individual level, I have to follow these first 5 sets. And the other 5 I have to follow towards when I operate with the society. And again, another, Hat Pratipika, Hatha Yoga Pratipika says again Yam and Niyam, and these are, elaborate. Why don't we get inspired by these? Why don't we bring some of this here? Next, when Swami Vivekananda was invited, when he started his, lecture in Chicago, he started with this. I am proud to belong to a religion which has taught the world both tolerance and universal acceptance. We believe not only in universal toleration, but we accept all religions as true. This is the culture. But I am proud to belong to a nation which has sheltered the persecuted and the refugees of all religions and all nations of the earth. This is what he has stated. And this is our composite culture. Sarva Dharma Sambhav. Can it find a place in our constitution? Can we proudly say that we want to make our country this? And we want to work towards Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam. Can we say that, we want to make this country a dharmic country? Is it possible? Shall we think about it? The last one, and this is just a small, maiden attempt, loud thinking. Maybe mistakes will be there, we can work on it further, but this is the one. We, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a dharmic, sovereign, socialist democracy. Can we do this? It's just a thinking.
Yes, why not?
Please.
No person is allowed.
Then one more example only I will give and I will leave. In fundamental...
Going too far.
Going too far, yes. Now, I only told you that this is a loud thinking. We have to work really, because this is only a sample. Fundamental duties, when we think of, okay, we have settled with many of the fundamental duties, we also found that they are good. Can we also say that in E, to promote harmony and the spirit of common brotherhood amongst all the people of India. No, all the people of the world. This is the Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam. Amongst all the people in the spirit of Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam. Can we make? And one more thing, and for this, I have discussed with our colleagues. I thank Sri Ravi Kumarji and our Sri Professor Ramnath Jaji for giving this clue, this idea that Isha Vashyam Idam Sarvam. For us, there is no difference between living and non-living also. When we talk about environment protection, to protect and improve natural environment, including forests, rivers, lakes, wildlife, and to have compassion for living creatures. No. Let us have living and non-living. All. Sarvam. This is how I think we can proceed. And there are many examples I can give you. Time is very short. Morning already Sri Dr. Rajendran sir has given example about Tirukural. This one is about the Uttaramoyuru inscriptions. This is the inscriptions. That is the temple, and these are on the side walls of the temple. It is encrypted. All these inscriptions are there. One point, there is no system in the country. Mr. Ravi Kumarji contribution. I openly thank him, and it's very nice point. We have electoral system here. Can we make it that if they don't perform, we will call back? And this was practiced there. It was practiced there at the time that it is stated when one who is, on the committee for ruling, at the village, level, Sabha, if he is found guilty of any offense, he shall be removed at once. Can we make it in this? Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Professor Pushkumar, for connecting past with the present. Professor Pushkumar was from Delhi University, Faculty of Law. Now the next speaker is Dr. Sundar Narayan Jha. We have 15 minutes only for Dr. Sundar Narayan.
Ramabhadraya Ramachandraya Vedhase Raghunathaya Nathaya Sitaya Pataye Namaha. इस सत्र के सभाध्यक्ष महोदय एवं मंच संचालक महोदय, मंच पर आसीन केंद्रीय संस्कृत विश्वविद्यालय के यशस्वी कुलपति एवं अन्य विधिविद, समक्ष विद्यमान हमारे श्रेष्ठ सहकर्मी, अनुज, छात्र एवं छात्रा, माता एवं बहनों, विधि शास्त्र एवं वैदिक दृष्टि, यह विषय मैंने रखा। विधि शब्द के विषय में पारस्पर गृह सूत्र में एक सूत्र है, विधिर विधेयस तर्कश्च वेदः। विधि, विधेय और तर्क, इन तीनों को वेद की संज्ञा दी गई है। तो विधि क्या है? विधि ब्राह्मण ग्रंथ को विधायक ग्रंथ कहा गया है, विधि ग्रंथ। उसमें विधेय पद जो है वो मंत्रों का वाचक है। मंत्रों में जिन यागों का वर्णन है, उन यागों की विधियों का वर्णन ब्राह्मण ग्रंथों में उपलब्ध होते हैं। इसीलिए हर एक वेद के अपने अपने ब्राह्मण ग्रंथ हैं और उन ब्राह्मण ग्रंथों में उसके प्रतिपादन किए गए हैं। वो है विधि। विधि, विधेय और तर्क, तर्क कहते हैं मीमांसा भी जो शास्त्र हैं, दर्शन शास्त्र, उसको तर्क कहते हैं। ये सब मिलकर वेद है। वेद का जो मंत्र है, उस मंत्र का ज्ञान करने के लिए, अर्थ ज्ञान करने के लिए एक श्लोक में प्रस्तुत करता हूँ। उसमें उन शास्त्रों का ज्ञान होना जरूरी है। अगर उन शास्त्रों का ज्ञान नहीं होगा तो वेदार्थ प्रतिपादन सम्यक ढंग से नहीं हो सकता। वेदे कांचन पत्तने परिलसत, वेद एक सोना का कलश है। वेदांत दुर्गो महान, उसके चारों तरफ किला है, दुर्ग है जिसका नाम है वेदांत। मीमांसा परिखा विभाति पुरतः, उस किले के चारों तरफ ऊंची दीवार जो किला है उसके चारों तरफ परिखा, परितः खातः परिखा, गहरी खाई है, उस खाई का नाम है मीमांसा। मीमांसा परिखा विभाति पुरतः शाब्दम लसत गोपुरम, गोपुर कहते हैं मुख्य द्वार को। उस किला का जो मुख्य द्वार है वह शब्द शास्त्र है, व्याकरण। योगो यामिनी जागरूक निचय, योग शास्त्र जो है वो रात को जागरूकता जाग कर पहरा देता है। योगो जामिनी जागरूक निचय सांख्यम विवेकात्मकम, मुख्य द्वार पर बैठा हुआ जो व्यक्ति है वह सांख्य शास्त्र रूपी है, वह विवेक संपन्न है। विवेक कहते हैं अच्छे बुरे की पहचान करना विवेक है। सांख्यम विवेकात्मकम, वह सांख्य शास्त्र वहां बैठा है, जानता है कि ये अपना आदमी है, ये पराया आदमी है, ये ठीक है, ये नहीं ठीक है, इसको जाने देना चाहिए, इसको नहीं जाने देना चाहिए। इतनी व्यवस्था होने के बाद भी धर्मम चोरयितुम विशन्ति सुभगा, फिर भी कोई कुशल चोर, दो प्रकार के चोर कहे गए हैं, स्तेन और तस्कर। स्तेन है गुप्त चोर, जो हम जब सोए रहते हैं तब हमारे घर में आकर चोरी कर जाता है, और तस्कर जो हमारे सामने चाकू दिखाकर हमको लूट लेता है। तो ये दोनों प्रकार के जो चोर हैं बड़े कुशल हैं। इतनी व्यवस्था होने के बाद भी, इतनी सुरक्षा होने के बाद भी यदि उस स्वर्ण कलश को लेने के लिए पहुंच जाते हैं तो नैयायिका रक्षका, वहां न्याय शास्त्र के जानकार जो नैयायिक हैं वो उसके रक्षा करने के लिए दौड़ पड़ते हैं। वहां किसी विद्वान ने नैयायिका को कुड़ाह कहा है प्रसंग बस इसलिए कि गांव घर में हम ऐसा देखते हैं कि रात को सब सोए रहते हैं, अगर चोर गांव में प्रवेश करता है तो कुकुर झपट पड़ते हैं, तो इसलिए मजाक में कह दिया है। लेकिन नैयायिका रक्षका, इन सभी शास्त्रों का अध्ययन जब तक हम नहीं करेंगे तब तक हम वेद का सम्यक प्रतिपादन वेदार्थ का नहीं कर सकते। इसलिए सायणाचार्य के विषय में कहा जाता है कि पदवाक्य प्रमाण पारावार पारीण सायणाचार्य आसीत, वह पद वाक्य प्रमाण रूपी जो सागर है उसको पार कर जाने वाले थे, इसीलिए उनका जो भाष्य है वो सबके लिए ही बड़ा हितकारी होता है। वह जो वेद है उसको ब्रह्म की संज्ञा दी गई है। मैत्रायणी उपनिषद में एक मंत्र है, द्वे ब्रह्मणि वेदितव्ये शब्द ब्रह्म परम च यः, शब्द ब्रह्मणि निष्णातः पर ब्रह्माधिगच्छति। दो प्रकार के ब्रह्म के स्वरूप वहां प्रतिपादित किए गए, शब्द ब्रह्म रूप एक स्वरूप और पर ब्रह्म रूप दूसरा स्वरूप। तो शब्द ब्रह्म क्या है? यह जो मंत्र संहिता है इसमें शब्द हैं, उन शब्दों का हम अध्ययन करते हैं, अध्यापन करते हैं, पढ़ते पढ़ाते हैं। उसी को सुनकर, शब्दों को सुनकर गुरु परंपरा जो चली वो श्रुति परंपरा है। वह शब्द क्या करता है? तो पर ब्रह्म के स्वरूप का निरूपण करता है। वह पर ब्रह्म क्या है? कि इस वेद में जो पर ब्रह्म है वो यज्ञ प्रजापति ही पर ब्रह्म है। उस यज्ञ प्रजापति का वर्णन मंत्र के द्वारा किया गया है, मंत्र संहिताओं, और उस यज्ञ प्रजापति के विधान का वर्णन विधायकम वाक्यम ब्राह्मणम, विधायक वाक्य ब्राह्मण ग्रंथ को कहा जाता है। इसलिए जो विधि को जानने वाला है, विधि को बतलाने वाला शास्त्र है, वह विधायक कहलाता है। आजकल विधायक एमएलए जो होते हैं वो विधायक अलग हैं, जबकि उनका भी काम वही है, कानून बनाना उन्हीं का काम है, संसद में ही कानून पारित होता है, और उस कानून को कानूनविद लोग न्यायालय में व्याख्या करते हैं और जिस तरह से परिस्थिति आती है उसका निर्णय देते हैं न्यायाधीश। तो कानून, यह जो विधि है, यही विधि अमरकोशकार ने विधि ब्रह्मा का नाम बताया है। धाताब्जयो निर्द्रोहिणो विरिंची कमलासनः स्रष्टा प्रजापतिर्वेधा विधाता विश्वसृड विधि। उस विधि का एक नाम और दिया, हिरण्यगर्भो लोकेशः स्वयंभूश्च चतुराननः, हिरण्यगर्भ भी नाम दिया। हिरण्यगर्भ के उत्पत्ति के विषय में मनु कहते हैं भगवान विष्णु ततः स्वयंभू भगवान अव्यक्त व्यंजयन निदम, यह सब हुआ। उसके बाद अप एव ससर्जादौ तासु बीजमावासृजत् तदंड महुवद्धैमं सहस्रांशु समप्रभम तस्मिन् यज्ञे स्वयं ब्रह्मा सर्वलोक पितामह। सबसे पहले परमात्मा ने जब इस सृष्टि की रचना करने का सोचा तो उन्होंने जल का निर्माण किया और उस जल में एक शक्ति रूपी बीज को जब छोड़ा तो एक अंडा उत्पन्न हुआ। वह अंडा कैसा था? तो तदंड महवद्धेमं सहस्रांशु समप्रभम, हजारों सूर्य के समान प्रकाश उसमें था। वह सोने का एक अंडा था। उस अंडे में तस्मिन् यज्ञे स्वयं ब्रह्मा, उस अंडे में ब्रह्मा जी निवास किए और ब्रह्मा जी ने उसमें कई वर्षों तक तपस्या की। उनकी तपस्या के द्वारा तपबल से वह अंडा दो भागों में विभक्त हुआ, एक ऊपर की ओर गया, एक नीचे की ओर गया। जो ऊपर की ओर गया वो 7 स्टेशन पर रुका, भूः भुवः स्वः जनः तपः सत्यम, ये 7 लोक बने। और जो नीचे का की ओर गया दूसरा टुकड़ा, वो भी 7 स्टेशन पर रुका, उससे 7 लोक नीचे के बने। ये अधोलोक और ऊर्ध्वलोक 14 भुवन तैयार हुए, ये विश्व बना। इस विश्व में 84 लाख योनि, तिर्यक योनि के जीव हैं। अभी हमारे पूर्व वक्ता ने कहा है कि वनस्पतियों को भी जीवन है, पत्थरों को भी जीवन है। हमारे वेद में पत्थरों की स्तुति की गई है, नदी की स्तुति की गई है, औषधियों की स्तुति की गई है, लता वृक्ष गुल्म वृक्ष वनस्पति सबकी स्तुति की गई है। वहां सबका जीवन है, सब में देवत्व है, सब देवमय है। तो 84 लाख योनि जो है वो कैसा है? तो स्थावरम विंशतिर्लक्षम, 20 लाख योनि स्थावरों की है। स्थावर उसको कहते हैं जिसको जो अपने मन से एक जगह से दूसरी जगह नहीं जाएगा, जहां पैदा हुआ वहीं नष्ट हो जाएगा, वो है स्थावर। स्थावरम विंशतिर्लक्षम जलजम नवलक्षकम, जल से उत्पन्न होने वाले 9 लाख जीव हैं, मत्स्यादि। कूर्मम च रौद्र लक्षम स्यात्, कूर्म कछुआ जिसके ऊपर एक कवच जैसा होता है, ऐसा जो शंख कछुआ आदि कूर्म प्रजाति के जीव हैं, वो 11 लाख योनियां हैं उनकी। तो 20 लाख 29 और 11 40 हो गया। 30 लक्षम पशूनाम तु स्थावरम विंशतिर्लक्षम जलजम नवलक्षकम कौर्मम च रौद्रलक्षम स्यात् 10 लक्षम तु पक्षिणम, 10 लाख योनि पक्षियों की है। 30 लक्षम पशूनाम तु 30 लाख योनि पशुओं की है। और 4 लक्षम च बानरान, 4 लाख योनि बानरों की है। उसमें छिपकली आदि जो है, ये सब वृक्ष पर चढ़ने वाले जो हैं, गिलहरी आदि, ये सब बानर योनि में आते हैं, वृक्ष पर चढ़ने वाले। ये कुल मिलाकर के 84 लाख योनि है, ये तिर्यक योनि है। ततो मनुष्यता प्राप्ति ही, इस 84 लाख योनि के बाद मनुष्य का निर्माण हुआ। ततो मनुष्यता प्राप्ति ही ततः कर्माणि साधयेत्, उसके बाद कर्म पर निर्भर करता है कि हम देव योनि उत्तम योनि में जाएंगे या अधम योनि में जाएंगे। ये गरुड़ पुराण में इसका विस्तृत विवेचन है, उसको पढ़ करके हम जान सकते हैं। वह जो ब्रह्मा है, वह ब्रह्मा इस संपूर्ण संसार को बनाता है। सोभिध्याय शरीरात् स्वात् शिश्रिक्षुर विविधा प्रजा, वह अनेक प्रकार की प्रजाओं की का निर्माण करने की जब कामना किया तो सो अकामयत नारायणो ह अकामयत, सत्य ब्राह्मण कहता है नारायण ने कामना की, एको हम बहुश्याम प्रजाये, या मैं अकेला हूं, बहुत हो जाऊं, इसके लिए प्रजनन करूं, बढ़ूं। तो कैसे बढ़ेगा? तो परमात्मा ने कुछ दर्शन किया। स तपो अतप्यत, उसने तप किया। स तपो अपतप्यत, सपंचरात्रम क्रतुम अपश्यत, उसने 5 रात में होने वाले पंचरात्र क्रतु यज्ञ का दर्शन किया। उस यज्ञ को किया, वह यज्ञ पंचरात्र क्रतु जो है वो है पुरुष मेध यज्ञ, जिसका वर्णन पुरुष सूक्त में पूरा है। सहस्रशीर्षा पुरुषा सहस्राक्षा सहस्रपात, उसमें तत्व विराट जाए तब विराजो ही पुरुषा तस्वा तस्वा जायंत जे के चोभया तथा, दोनों तरफ दांत वाले, एक तरफ दांत वाले, सब प्रकार के जीव उत्पन्न हुए, ये सब उसमें विधान है। जब इस समस्त सृष्टि का निर्माण ब्रह्मा ने कर दिया तो ब्रह्मा के लिए हिरण्यगर्भ सूक्त में कहा गया है ऋग्वेद में, हिरण्यगर्भः समवर्तत अग्रे, अग्रे सर्वप्रथमम हिरण्यगर्भः समवर्तत। हिरण्यगर्भ नाम का जो प्रजापति है वह उत्पन्न हुआ। भूतस्य जातः पति एक आसीत, वह संपूर्ण प्राणी का 84 लाख योनि, अधम योनि, एक मनुष्य योनि, देव योनि, सब योनि में जो जीव तत्व हैं उन सभी तत्वों का अकेला वो एक स्वामी था। हिरण्यगर्भः समवर्तताग्रे भूतस्य जातः पतिरेक आसीत, सौदाधार पृथ्वी, उसने पृथ्वी को धारा, यहाँ पृथ्वी शब्द का अर्थ इस पृथ्वी से नहीं है। सौदाधार पृथ्वी द्याम उतेमाम, इमाम से इस पृथ्वी का बोध होता है और पृथ्वी से अंतरिक्ष लोक का बोध होता है। सौदाधार पृथ्वी द्याम, द्याम माने द्युलोक, और उत इमाम, इमाम पृथ्वी दाधार, कस्मै देवा यह विखा विधे, मैं यहाँ को संज्ञक प्रजापति है, प्रजापति वै कह सतपथ ब्राह्मण कहता है, उस कौसंज्ञक प्रजापति के लिए हम यह सेवा पूजा करते हैं। उस परमात्मा ने जो नीति बनाई उस नीति में 3 नीति प्रधान है, धर्म नीति, राजनीति और विज्ञान नीति। मैं बहुत कम समय लूंगा क्योंकि कम समय में मैं
सर 15 मिनट
जी
हो गया है, हम लोग के पास समय नहीं है, अगला सेशन होने वाला है, बहुत देर होगी।
जी जी, तो धर्म नीति, राजनीति और विज्ञान,
आप संक्षेप में समाप्त करें।
विज्ञान नीति तो अध्यात्म नीति है, अध्यात्म है, किंतु राजनीति और धर्म नीति का एक उदाहरण छोटा सा देता हूं। किसी व्यक्ति ने एक दूसरे व्यक्ति को कहा कि 2 डंडा दिया और कहा कि इस डंडे में से दोनों की लंबाई समान थी, 2 डंडा दिया और कहा कि इसमें से एक को छोटा कर दीजिए, एक को बड़ा कर दीजिए। 2 व्यक्ति सामने थे, एक व्यक्ति ने क्या किया, फट से पकड़ा उसके हाथ से और तोड़ दिया, उसको फेंक दिया एक टुकड़ा, कहा लो हो गया, एक छोटा हो गया, बड़ा हो गया। दूसरे ने कहा नहीं भाई ये ठीक नहीं, इसमें एक की हिंसा हो रही, तोड़ा जा रहा है। मां हिंसा सर्वभूतानि, कल भी हमारे पूर्व आचार्य वक्ता ने उदाहरण दिया है धर्मशास्त्र का, किसी की हिंसा करना ठीक नहीं है, तो ये ठीक नहीं है, तो क्या करना चाहिए? तो उन्होंने धर्म नीति का आश्रय लिया, कहा कि जो तोड़ करके फेंका वो भी लाओ और उसके बाद उतना बड़ा और लेकर आओ। तो जो तोड़ा था उसको जोड़ दिया, उसमें थोड़ा और जोड़ दिया, तो एक छोटा एक बड़ा हो गया, कि ये धर्म नीति है। तो आत्मोदयः बलग्रामीण नीति नीतिस्तदिह कथ्यते, ये शिशुपाल वध का जो कथन है
सर,
आत्मोदय अपना हृदय और
विनम्र अनुरोध है सर, समाप्त करें, समय नहीं।
इस प्रकार से समय होता तो मैं बहुत कुछ तैयार करके लाया था, अब ये छपेगा तो आप लोग पढ़ेंगे। मैं इस
धन्यवाद डॉक्टर सुरेंद्र, धन्यवाद डॉक्टर सुरेंद्र।
एक तदर्थ मैं आयोजकों को और विशेष रूप से उपेंद्र,
हम आभारी हैं सारे प्रतिभागियों जिन्होंने गर्भित व्याख्यान दिया है।
और मंच को प्रणाम करते हुए, सभा के सदस्यों को प्रणाम करते हुए मैं अपनी वाणी को विराम देता हूँ। धन्यवाद।
यत् कृपालवमात्रेण मूको भवति पंडितः, वेदशास्त्र शरीरां तां वाणी वीणाखरां भजे। मंच के सामने विराजमान धर्मशास्त्र और भारतीय पारंपरिक संविधान शास्त्र के सम्माननीय आचार्यगण और हमारे मंच पर उपस्थित भारतीय पारंपरिक संविधान, राजधर्म और सुशासन के 6 तत्वों पर व्यापक रूप से परिचर्चा करने वाले हमारे आचार्य। इस सत्र में वस्तुतः जो चर्चा उपस्थित हुई उनके ऊपर एक अलग अलग संगोष्ठी का आयोजन अनूप जी को करना पड़ेगा। पूज्य पन्नालोक जी ने संपूर्ण वैदिक परंपरा, बौद्ध परंपरा को एक एक शास्त्रीय परंपरा के माध्यम से जिस तरह से संविधान के स्वरूप और राजधर्म की चर्चा की, उससे अनेक आयाम पर विचार करने के लिए हम सबको बाध्य होना पड़ा, जिस पर अभी बहुत चर्चा की आवश्यकता है। उसी के समान जो चर्चा हमारे आचार्य सुंदर नारायण झा जी ने प्रस्तुत की, वह तो भूमिका तक ही बढ़े। अगर भूमिका के आगे थोड़ा सा आगे बढ़ते तो भारतीय संविधान का व्यापक स्वरूप किस रूप में होना चाहिए वह हमारे सामने आ जाए। हमारे आचार्य पुष्प कुमार जी ने व्यापक रूप से जो चर्चा की, उसकी आधारभूमि तैयार कर रहे थे हमारे सुंदर नारायण झा जी। हमारी जो भारतीय पारंपरिक संविधान का जो स्वरूप है, जो वैदिक संविधान का स्वरूप है, वह स्वरूप बहुत ही सामान्य है। हम बड़े जिस सर्वधर्म समभाव की चर्चा हम लोग करते हैं, जिस वसुधैव कुटुंबकम की चर्चा करते हैं, वह हमारी वैदिक परंपरा बहुत ही सामान्य रूप से क्या है कि ज्योति से आना और ज्योति के साथ मिल जाना। तो हमारी भूमिका का आधार क्या है? तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय। हम सेंट्रीपिटल फोर्स के रूप में और सेंट्रीफ्यूगल फोर्स के रूप में अपने भारतीय संविधान को, पारंपरिक संविधान को जो हमारा चला रहा है, उसके अनुसार कार्य करते रहे। जो बात आपने कही कि हम डॉक्टर अयंगर का उदाहरण देते हुए और राव का उदाहरण देते हुए हम भूल गए कि हमें सोचना क्या चाहिए। तो हमने क्या किया कि हमने तमो मार्ग की व्याख्या की, हमने प्रकाशमय मार्ग की व्याख्या की। तो हमारे सामने हमने पारंपरिक संविधान में हजारों वर्ष पूर्व 2 मुख्य मार्ग के लिए किया। हमने केवल यहाँ के लिए नहीं सोचा। हमारा संविधान सार्वभौमिक संविधान है, जिस मोनो यूनिवर्सल मोनो की जो बात करते हैं वो बात वहां से शुरू होती है। जब हमने क्या बनाया, कॉस्मॉस का संविधान बनाया, कहा कि पितृयान का भी मार्ग है और देवयान का भी मार्ग है। और वह मार्ग कहाँ से कहाँ किसने बनाया? हमारे ऋषियों ने बनाया। और कॉस्मॉस के साथ कहा कि नहीं, जो दक्षिणायन है, जो कृष्ण पक्ष है, और उसके साथ साथ जो अपराह्न है, वह क्या है? वह पितृयान का मार्ग है। हमारी लाइफ जो है, हमारा जीवन शैली जो है, जब तक जिसकी आपने चर्चा की बार बार जो है बहुत, और हमारे डॉक्टर रमन पाल सिंह ने जो बातें कही कि हमें कहाँ से संविधान को अपने अंतःकरण में, अपनी प्रवृत्तियों में डालना। तो हमारा जो वैदिक पारंपरिक जो जिस मत की वस्तुतः वो एक आधार भूमि बना रहे थे, उसके आगे चलते तो हमने दोनों के लिए बनाई। जब देवयानी की चर्चा की हमने, तो शुक्ल पक्ष की चर्चा की, हमने उत्तरायण को लिया, और हमने ब्राह्म मुहूर्त को लिया। जब हम ब्राह्म मुहूर्त को लेते हैं तो फिर क्या है, हमारे सामने नित्य स्वरूप आता है, वो ब्रह्म का स्वरूप है। उस स्वरूप से जो चर्चा होती है, उन जो 6 तत्वों में हम धीरे धीरे आगे बढ़ते हैं। जब वेद के साथ, धर्मशास्त्र के साथ, पुराण के साथ, इतिहास के साथ, और जो हमारे माननीय कुलपति जी ने चर्चा की महाभारत के उदाहरणों को लेकर, इन सब के तत्वों को लेकर हमारा भारतीय जो पारंपरिक संविधान है, जो राजधर्म का जो स्वरूप है, सुशासन का स्वरूप है, तब उस पर अधिक अधिकार के साथ, विस्तार के साथ और स्पष्टता के साथ चर्चा हो सकती है। जब कभी इस तरह का कोई अवकाश हो तो इन पर अलग से पारंपरिक विद्वानों की जो है, और आप जैसे जो कानूनविद हैं, जो व्याख्याता है, उनके साथ अगर बैठ के एक इस तरह से आदान प्रदान की गोष्ठी हो, तो वह तत्व जो डॉक्टर आयंगर डालना चाहते थे वो प्रमुख रूप से हम सबके सामने प्रस्तुत हो सकते हैं। हमारे आचार्य श्री बैठे हुए, मैंने पहले ही कहा कि वो हमारे धर्मशास्त्र के पूज्य आचार्य हैं, गुरुकल्प हैं, तो उनकी बातों को अभी अगले सेशन में सुनना है। और हमारे आदरणीय मिश्र जी ने कहा है कि अत्यंत 2 शब्द में कह दीजिए, तो कहने का इसमें विशेष रूप से ऐसे विद्वान बैठे हो तो लगता है कुछ कह जाइए, जो गलती होगी शायद बाद में स्पष्ट हो जाए। लेकिन मैं एक बार सबका अभिनंदन करता हुआ, आप सबके प्रति विशेष रूप से कृतज्ञता ज्ञापित करता हुआ कि आप लोग इतने सम्मानित आचार्य हैं, लेकिन समय सीमा का आप लोगों ने पूरी तरह से पालन किया और विद्यार्थियों के सामने प्रस्तुत किया कि नहीं, सुशासन है आचार्यों के मन में भी। धन्यवाद।
थैंक यू वेरी मच सर। अब ये तकनीकी सत्र यहीं समाप्त।